Good day, one and all. Welcome to the wonderful world of Word 2016. My name is Dan McAllister, and I'll be your host today. Perhaps one of the first things that we ought to do is go grab some practice files to work with. Although we won't be using them right away, we will be using them fairly quickly. Here is my extracted version of the Word sample files, and I hope that you have that as well. Now that I have my sample files available out on the desktop, I think the next thing I should do is start Microsoft Word. Now, when I installed Microsoft Office 2016, it put little shortcuts down here on the area called the taskbar. So I have one for Excel and OneNote and Outlook and PowerPoint, and I did actually have one for Word right here. But let's imagine that you're not that lucky, that you don't have Word, blue W for Word, just sitting down there. Here's how you could get that to happen. So I'm going to go click on my Start Orb, and the search box appears just automatically with a cursor flashing in it, where I'm going to start typing Word. And as I type more letters, it becomes more focused on what I'm looking for. So having typed the letter W, that might even be enough to make Word appear here. If it's not, I keep typing the word Word, and the more I type, the more focused it becomes. And in my case, you can see that I have Word 2016, 2010, 2007. I actually have Word 2013 in there. You can't see it. I even have back here to Word 2003. You are not going to have that happening on your computer, most likely. So what I want to do is take Word 2016 and pin it to the taskbar. Any of you Macintosh users, it's like putting a program on the dock. So here's how I'm going to do that. Having typed in Word and have 2016 appear up here, I'm going to right-click on it, so you get a little pop-up menu about it. And in the pop-up menu, I can choose left-click, Pin to Taskbar. And so that way, I have it down here on the taskbar all the time, and the next time I need to start Microsoft Word, I just go click on it, instead of having to go back down here and search for Word and find the one that I want and click on it. So now that I have it down on the taskbar, I point at it, I click on it one time, it launches. And once I start this, the first thing I see are a whole bunch of templates down here. Now, the first time I saw templates in a Microsoft project was several years ago in Microsoft Publisher. The next time I saw them, it was in the Microsoft for Mac version of Office, where you would start up one of the Mac Office programs and you would see the templates. Now, since 2010, as soon as you start Microsoft Word, you see these templates, and they can be a really cool thing. For example, I've got templates for, calendars. I've got templates for greeting cards and invitations, personalized letterhead, 3-panel brochures. So I could look like a design genius, even though I'm just starting with Microsoft Word. I could start with one of these templates. Let me just click on that one for a moment. And it shows me a little preview of it. And if I then click Create, then it pulls that one up. And then here's what it looks like. And it's pre-formatted. It's got some cool text turned sideways here. It's got some pictures in here. Now, you can click on a picture and insert your own. I'm not going to do that right now, but you can see this is a 3-panel brochure here. Now, I'm not quite ready for you to do that, but I just want you to see that you could look like a design genius by starting with one of those templates. I'm going to close that one instead, and then I'm not going to save it, and since it's the last document that I have open, that actually closes Word. So now that I have it down on my taskbar, I just point at it again, I click on it once, and this time I just want to start a blank document. So I'm going to click on Blank Document, and here it comes. Why don't you do that much? Put our video on pause, go start Word. If you don't have Word down on your taskbar, do that thing I did. I clicked on the Start button, I searched for Word. When I found it, I right-clicked on it, and on the pop-up menu, I told it to pin it to the taskbar. So please do that. And then once Word has started, click on the template for Blank Document, and your screen will look like mine. So put the video on pause right now and catch up with me there. Start Word with a blank document, please. All right, let's rock. So the first thing on our agenda to talk about is kind of the layout of things here called the interface. That's kind of an odd word, interface. An interface is where two systems come together. In this case, it's called the user interface, where Microsoft Word is interacting with you, the user. So I'm going to work my way from top to bottom here in some of the automatic things that are set up in the interface. For example, this area right up here at the very top is referred to as the Quick Access Toolbar. Now, Microsoft makes a database program called Access, but this thing called the Quick Access Toolbar has nothing to do with that. So the Quick Access Toolbar is a place where I can put buttons that I use a lot. So I have the Save button, I have the Undo, I have the Redo, and then I got a fourth little button over here. As I hover over it, it says, Customize that Quick Access Toolbar. I'm going to click on that right now, and I see a list of things that I could quickly add to that Quick Access Toolbar. Some of them are checkmarked, namely the Save button, the Undo, and the Redo button. That's the three that are up there right now. I would like to introduce this thing, Touch Mouse Mode. Now, Microsoft knows that one of the waves of the future is miniaturization. So a lot of people won't be working on a big desktop computer. Maybe they won't even be working on just a regular old laptop computer. Maybe they're working on one of those nice new small tablet computers, like the Microsoft Surface computer. Well, if that's the case, it might be nice to have buttons that are a little bit bigger than this. I don't know about you, but I have kind of fat fingers. So if I'm working on some little small screen, it might be tough for me to use the touch mode and touch on these little buttons and get the one I want. So I'm going to add a choice here called Touch/Mouse Mode. And it's kind of hard to see it first here, but it looks like a little finger pointing at a button. And in fact, let me zoom in on this using some third-party software that I have installed. So here's the button that I just created, that I just added up there. It looks like a little finger pointing at a button. And if I want to turn it on, if I want to switch it over to touch mode instead of mouse mode, I click on that button, and you'll see two choices here, the mouse mode versus the touch mode. I'd like you to watch what happens to the buttons up here when I click on the touch mode. Bada bing, bada boom. Notice they get bigger here. And that'll make it easier on one of those little tablet computers when I'm trying to use my fingers to touch on the screen and make things happen. The buttons get bigger, and that's going to make it easier for that. Yes, the trade-off is that it eats into my working space a little bit, but particularly on a small screen, that's a nice trade-off. In fact, a lot of my friends just work with the bigger buttons all the time. It just makes it easier to work on things for them, and they don't mind the trade-off of using the smaller space. So I'm going to go up and turn that off. I'm going to go click on the touch mode and switch it back to mouse mode. All right, so I'd like you to do what you just saw me do. What was that? I went up and clicked on the pull-down arrow here about customizing the Quick Access Toolbar. I turned on touch and mouse mode, and then I went and actually clicked on the button and changed it over to touch mode for a moment, and then I switched it back to mouse mode. So you go play with that for just a moment, turning on and off the touch mode versus the mouse mode, everybody. Have at it. Let's continue with our exploration of the interface. So far we've seen the Quick Access Toolbar up here at the top. Notice the Quick Access Toolbar also has the title bar, and I haven't saved this document yet, so it's got this generic name, Document 1. Right below the Quick Access Toolbar, we have what are called the Command tabs, File, Home, Insert, Design. Every time I click a Command tab, I get a new ribbon. So when I click on the Insert Command tab, I get the Insert ribbon. When I click on the Layout tab, I get the Layout ribbon. Now, as I go across the Command tabs, every single one of them produces a new ribbon. But there are times when I've seen people lose the buttons down here in the ribbon. And let me show you how that can happen, unfortunately, fairly easily. If I'm working in the Mailings tab, I see the Mailings ribbon. If I click on the Layout tab, I get the Layout ribbon. If I happen to double-click on the References tab, no problem, just produces the new References ribbon. But here's a very common mistake. If I point at the tab that's already active, and I happen to double-click on that, maybe I'm just getting twitchy-fingered. Holy cow, where'd all my buttons go? Now, in order to get that back, the first thing I'm going to think of is, I should probably go click on that again. And sure enough, when I do that, the ribbon reappears, but then as soon as I make a choice on the ribbon and click away, it disappears again. So some people like working in that kind of view because it gives them maybe an extra inch of working space up here towards the top. But it does kind of defeat Microsoft's purpose of taking the things that they think you'll use most often and putting them right in front of your face under the Home tab. So let's talk about how we can manipulate these Command tabs and the buttons that appear below them. All of that work can be done up here in the upper right-hand corner. Now, those of you who have been around the Windows operating system for a while, you're used to the close button, you're used to the maximize/restore down button, you're used to the minimize button. But unless you've already been using Microsoft Office 2013, this one right here is a new kid on the block, Ribbon Display Options. Now when I click on that, I can see 3 different choices. One of them's blue right now, and that's the one that's active, Show the Tabs. Now I see another one down here about Show the Tabs and Commands. When I click on that, there comes all my buttons back again. And as soon as I use one of them, they won't disappear on me. Let's go look at that choice one more time. I'm going up here where it says Ribbon Display Options. Here's one that will mess people up every once in a while. Auto hide the ribbon. So this gives me a full screen document to work on. And then every once in a while, I need to make a choice in the ribbon. So how do I get it back? Well, I've got my close button here. I have a button that says Ribbon Display Options. And when I click on that, here's my old friend. I'm going to go back there and show the tabs and the commands. And life is good. So again, that's something that can happen by mistake if you happen to double click on the tab that's already active, or you can do it on purpose by clicking on this button to look at all the different choices about how the ribbon could appear. Do you want to see the tabs? Do you want to see the ribbon at all? Do you want to see the tabs and the commands? So again, I'm going to suggest that you put our video on pause here for a moment and go up there and play with that button. First of all, work across the tabs that are in here, and then go up there and play with that button to see how you can hide the tabs, show the tabs, hide the commands, show the commands, hide the ribbon itself. So take just a moment, put our video on pause, and go play with that spot right there, everybody. All right, welcome back from your play with the information about the tabs and the ribbon. Next thing I'd like to talk about are these command tabs a little bit more. So far I've mentioned every time I click on a command tab, I get a new ribbon. Just some of the other terminology here. Inside the ribbon, you will see the buttons grouped into what are called groups of buttons. So for example, under my Home tab, I have the clipboard group. I have the font group. I have the paragraph group. And then by hovering over each of the buttons, I can get them to tell me their names. And sometimes I'll even see a keyboard shortcut. For example, when I hover over the B, it says, that B stands for bold, and it says there's a keyboard shortcut, Control and B. Now I can either turn on the bold before I type or after I type. We'll be doing all of that pretty soon. So every time I click a command tab, I get a new ribbon. The ribbon is broken down into groups of buttons. Here's the paragraph group, here's the styles group, found under the Home tab, which produced the Home ribbon. And then every once in a while in one of these groups, they will give you one of these guys, a little down-pointing right arrow. When I hover over it, it gives me a way to further customize things that I'm seeing on screen. Its official name is a dialog box launcher. Sometimes at our company we call it the black hole in time, because when I click on it, very often I am taken to a window that I might recognize if I have been around Word for a long time, maybe back to the 2003 version of Microsoft Word. This used to be the way to modify my fonts. So again, pretty much every time you click on one of those dialog launchers, you will be going into an old school window, whether you realize it or not. Maybe you weren't using Word back in the day where this looks familiar to you, but just be aware that it's another way to do many of the same things that you have in the group of buttons up here. For example, I see this is the paragraph group, and I've got stuff about adding bullets or adding numbers to my lines, indenting and outdenting, setting line spacing options. And if I click on the dialog launcher here, look, I've got left aligned, right aligned. I've got line spacing options in here. It's just another way to do several of the same jobs that are already available in the groups of buttons right up here. And sometimes there's extra choices in this dialog window that there isn't a button for up in the main part of the ribbon. So that's how you can get to the dialog launchers and just the terminology. The command tabs produce ribbons. Ribbons are broken down into groups of buttons. Many times the buttons have pull-down arrows with further choices. And every once in a while, they'll give you one of these dialog launchers that's a down-pointing right arrow. Continuing with our exploration of the interface, I would like to mention that one of these tabs is not like the others. One of these tabs is not the same. Come on, everybody. Oh, maybe we're not all Sesame Street fans. The tab that I'm talking about right now is the File tab. So right now, every one of these tabs produces a new ribbon, but if I go over here and click the File tab, welcome to this totally different view here called the Backstage view. So you'll see they've got a nice list here of recently used files. Now, the first time you open your Microsoft Word, you probably won't have any files over here. I also have my personal OneDrive, that's online storage. I have other web locations, I have this PC. When I click on this PC, then I will see recently used folders as well as recently used documents. And if the thing that I want isn't in any of these folders, isn't any of these documents, I can simply browse for the file that I want to open. And then I can navigate through my hard drive. I can navigate through shared drives in my corporate network, and so forth. So this is how you can open a file that exists already. For the moment, I'm going to click Cancel. Now, Microsoft says this Backstage view is where you do things to your files rather than in them. And many of those things I see listed over at the left-hand side. For example, I can open a file. If I click on New, oh look, there's those templates we were seeing when we started this program. If I click on the Info button on the left-hand side, I can see some information about protecting the document, inspecting it, some properties. Some of these are automatically set up. Some of them are things that I can fill in. Over here at the left side, I can open a file, I can save a file. I can take a file that's already got a name and save it as a different name. I can click on Print here, and I'll actually see a print preview of my document. Boy, that's pretty exciting so far. I don't have anything in it yet. And you'll see a whole bunch of settings that I can choose on the left-hand side for doing my printout. I'm not quite ready to do that yet. You'll see that I can share this document with others. There's another big trend of the future, collaboration with other people on a document. Maybe you have to run it by the legal department. Maybe you have a couple of people in your department who are experts in various parts of what this document is about. So you could save it to the cloud somehow, either through OneDrive, or if your company uses SharePoint, then you would be able to share this with people, and you could control who could do what in it, and then you could have multiple people working on it at the same time. Also in my Backstage view, I see choices about exporting to other file types. Maybe I want to change it to an older version of Microsoft Word because I'm dealing with somebody, one of my customers, who still only has the 2003 version of Microsoft Word. Quite frankly, that doesn't happen very often anymore because it's 10-year-old software, but every once in a while. Here's a place I can close my document. There are some other options in here that we'll talk about how you can decide where things are going to get saved and how they're going to look and so forth. Now, to step out of the Backstage view, all you have to do is go up here and click on the Back button, and now you're back into the normal view where you've got the Command tabs and the Quick Access toolbar. Now, as I look down towards the bottom of the screen, I have this bar down at the bottom. This is called the Status bar. And I can see what page I'm working on. I can see how many words are in there. Again, not too exciting just yet. You might be able to see a section number. Down here at the bottom of my screen is another important part of my Word interface. This is called the status bar. On the left-hand side, I can see what page I'm working on. I can see how many words are in my document. Gee, that's not too exciting so far. Over on the right-hand side, I see several different views that are available. And at the far right, I see ways to zoom in and zoom out on this document. Now I've got a minus sign on this end. Every time I click on that, it zooms me out so I can see more of the document. Once I have text on there, it will be harder to read the text as I zoom in and zoom out. Over here on the right-hand side, I click on the plus sign. I can zoom in. You can even see percentages over here as to how much I am zoomed in. And you might notice this slider goes back and forth as I click the plus and minus signs. I can actually grab that slider and drag it left and right. Now we can pass out the Dramamine to anybody who's got any motion sickness going on there. But I got to tell you, if I have a mouse with a scroll wheel on it, I hardly ever go down here to zoom in and out on my document. Right now I'm sitting at a computer that has a scroll wheel on its mouse, and as I roll that scroll wheel, it lets me scroll up and down the document. Here's the bottom of the page, now I'm going the other direction, here's the top of the page. But if I hold the Control key while I'm rolling the scroll wheel, it quickly zooms me in and out. And this is not just a Word thing. This happens all across the Office suite and in a lot of different programs, maybe even several of the programs on the Adobe side. And by using Control and the scroll wheel, I don't have to get down to some little 1/8 of an inch thing down here in the bottom right corner to be able to zoom in and out. Now pretty soon we're going to start entering text, and then we'll need to start talking about formatting various things. Now we're going to be discussing things that will format the entire document, or just a paragraph, or just a word, or words and sentences and paragraphs that I have pre-selected. But let's start out with kind of a big thing here. Let's talk about something that will affect the entire document. And this is going to be available under the Layout tab. So I'm going to click the Layout tab, producing the Layout ribbon. And one of the things that I get to choose in there is the orientation of my paper. Now right now I'm going to use the Control and scroll wheel method for zooming out, so maybe I can see the entire page here. And then under my Layout tab, I'm going to click on the orientation of the page. And I get two choices. Right now I'm in portrait orientation. I have another one called landscape orientation that turns the paper sideways. Now this depends on what kind of a document I'm trying to create. For example, maybe a certificate of completion, I'd like to have it sideways with really big letters on it. But maybe for a business letter, I'd like to have the orientation in portrait orientation so that I can do my typing and it will look more like a business letter. One of the other things I can change in here is the actual paper size itself. And of course that means that I have to have a printer that will print on these various sources. Legal size, executive size. So let me zoom out a little bit more here so that we'll be able to really see the differences. When I change the paper size to legal, for example, you can see it got quite a bit taller all of a sudden. And if I turn that one to landscape orientation, now notice that there is a trade-off. When I go to landscape orientation, I gain width, but I lose height. So, pay attention to that. That will be part of the thing that you'll want to set up probably before you start typing. You can change it afterwards, but it's better to plan ahead as to what you want this thing to look like. So I'm going to go back to the 8.5 by 11 letter paper size, and I'm going to go back to the portrait orientation. Why don't you just take a moment, put our video on pause, and play with that for a minute. That was under the Layout tab, and we were changing the paper size and the orientation. So put our video on pause and then come on back and we'll continue with this discussion. All right, welcome back. It's time to get in and get our hands dirty. So I'm going to be zooming in so that when I type stuff, I'll actually be able to read it. And maybe this is going to be a memo to people in a particular department. So I'm going to start typing that. M-E-M-O. I'm holding the Shift key to get all capital letters. And then once I'm done typing that, I hit the Enter key and it will jump down to the next line. And then maybe this is going to be who I'm sending it to. I'm going to say it's to the people in the training department. I'm going to hit the Enter key. It jumps down and starts another new line. I'm going to put in who it's from. Every time I hit the Enter key, it jumps down and starts a new line. You'll see that there's some nice line spacing, makes things a little bit easier to read, not all clumped up. Now, every once in a while, I'll forget to put something in. Now, you may have noticed every time I hit the Enter key, the cursor, that's the name of that flashing thing there, jumps down and starts a new line. But there are times when I want to take stuff that I've already typed and kick it farther down the page, and this is going to be one of those cases. So to do that, I'm going to click right up here to put my flashing cursor in front of the word to, and when I hit the Enter key, it takes everything following that cursor and kicks it down. And then I can hit the up arrow and I can put in today's date. By the way, any of you who love keyboard shortcuts, Microsoft Word has a nice keyboard shortcut for putting in today's date. It is Alt and Shift and D for date. So right now I'm holding the Alt and the Shift, and while I'm holding them, I'm tapping D for date, and lo and behold, there is today's date filled right in there. So I think this would be a good place for you to put the video on pause and do what you just saw me do. Remember, I typed the word memo, I hit the Enter key, I put in the to line, I hit the Enter key, I put in the from line, I hit the Enter key, and then to move the word to, I click to put my cursor just in front of it, I hit the Enter key to kick it down, and then to fill in the date. Does anybody remember what the keyboard shortcut was for the date? Right now, I hope some of you are shouting, "Why, Dan, it's Alt and Shift and D." Right? It's your turn to try that. So put the video on pause. Catch up with me, everybody. Welcome back. I'm hoping you're having some fun learning how to set up your text. So next thing I'm going to do is click right after my name, and I'm going to get the cursor to kick down the page. Now, if I try to hit the down arrow key, it will only go as far as where I've hit enter so far. And then if I needed to go even farther down, then I need to hit enter more times. I'm going to leave a little bit of extra space by hitting the enter key one more time. And now I'm going to start my memo. But I think I'd like to be able to read it a little bit better, so I'm going to zoom in. Maybe I'll go down here and click my plus sign a couple of times. Maybe I would use Control and the scroll wheel. Right, now I'd like to type something that's not just going to be a little short line. I'd like to type something that's going to be a paragraph or two, and that will let us talk about these margins and how they are the places where your words will wrap. Now, this is not like Rapper's Delight or something like that. Boom, 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 do. It's just W-R-A-P, the words wrapping inside the margins. Here we go. So this is a memo to my training department, and it's going to talk about how we teach about Word when we first started up. So when teaching about Word 2016, we want to do this thing, we want to do that thing. So I'm just going to keep typing, and you're going to see the word wrapping happen. When teaching about Word 2016, start with the interface. Talk about the quick access toolbar, the ribbon, the bottom status bar, and how to turn on the rulers. Now you notice how it just automatically word wrapped right there. I did not hit the enter key to start a new line. So that's an example of word wrapping. Let me zoom in on that a little bit more so you have a better chance of reading it. Maybe even a better chance of reading the whole thing. So I'd like you to catch up with me. Do what I have done. Type this paragraph so you can see it word wrapping in there. And then we'll come back and work together on some more. So far we've been talking about entering text. But sometimes you realize you've made mistakes, or you've forgotten something, or you should have used a different word somewhere. So now we're going to start talking about editing text that exists already. So for example, maybe I would like to get rid of the word Dan and replace it with something longer. So one of the ways I can do this is to click to put a cursor right after the N in Dan, and maybe hit the backspace key to take those letters out one at a time. And then in their place, I will type in Daniel and add my middle name, James. And you'll see as I do that, the words that are there already, they just move over and make room for that. So that flashing thing is called the cursor, or another name for it is the insertion point. And you've just actually seen why they might call it the insertion point. Now, that's one way to do that, erasing one thing and then typing another thing in its place. But we have a little saying around here. We say, you need not erase to replace. So maybe, for example, I want to replace the word word with something more general, talk about not specifically Word 2016, but the whole Office suite when teaching about Office 2016. So here I'm going to talk about you need not erase to replace. I'm just going to select the word word by dragging across it, and then in its place, I'm going to type the word Office. And you'll see how it just automatically puts that word right in there. And any word wrapping that's going on at the end of the line is just going to automatically take over and wrap down to the next line. Now maybe I'm realizing that not everybody's going to know what the QA toolbar is, so maybe I need to spell that out. Quick Access Toolbar. So I'm going to click to put my flashing insertion point right there, and I'm going to start typing the rest of the word quick. Leave a little space. Hit the right arrow key to move past the A and add the word access. By the way, that has nothing to do with the database program called Microsoft Access. It's just the official name for this area right up here called the Quick Access Toolbar. All right, so you can see how it automatically rewraps the words as we do that. So why don't you just take a moment and go in and try some of the things you just saw me doing. I erased a word and then typed another word in its place. And then I went and selected a word and typed another word in its place without deleting it first. So put our video on pause, go do that just a little bit. Maybe you're typing something different than what I'm typing. That's fine, that's okay. You can work on the kind of memo that you would be writing, and that way you're practicing stuff that would be more familiar. So put our video on pause, take just a moment, play a little bit with the editing. Erase something and type something else in its place, and then try one where you select a word and type another word in its place without erasing first. So put our video on pause and try that. Welcome back. Let's continue typing. So I'm going to click right here after the word rulers, or whatever is your last word. Hit the enter key a couple of times, and then let's put in a closing. How about sincerely, enter key, and then fill in your name. Please pause the video and do that, and then we'll be ready to save this document. All right, good work. Let's go talk about saving this thing now. Now, as I look up in my quick access toolbar, I have this little object, supposed to look like an old floppy disk. Or I can go to my File tab and go to the Backstage view and save in there. I'm going to click the back button. When I hover over that floppy disk, it says, okay, it's used to save, and it might be a little bit hard to see, but it does say Control and S is the keyboard shortcut for that. In fact, let me use some third-party software to zoom in on that even more. Oh, it won't keep the little tooltip as I zoom in. So again, it's probably a little bit hard to see because it gets miniaturized on your screen, but the save command keyboard shortcut is Control and S. So I'm going to go click on that little save button. And you notice the window that pops up says Save As. Now, until you've saved a file in the first place, obviously there's no difference between save versus save as. The save as specifically comes in if you decide that you want to save that document under a different name. So maybe you've got a document that looks one way, and then you've made some changes to it, and you don't want to lose the original by clicking Save to destroy the original and put the new one in its place. You might be able to choose Save As, and that way give it a slightly different name or put it in a different folder, and then you'd have a before version and an after version. But when you're saving it for the first time, there's no difference between save versus save as. Now I get to choose where I want to put it, and you might notice that by default it's ready to put it on the cloud. So this is another one of those things that Microsoft realizes is the wave of the future, collaboration and storing things in a place where not only can I get to it on all my different devices, maybe my Windows phone, maybe my tablet computer, maybe my desktop computer. That's one of the things that putting a document on the cloud is good for. Also for collaboration. Give somebody else permission to work on that document on the cloud with you, and that way you can be both working on it at the same time. That's a little bit down the road as far as our lesson is concerned. In my case, I would like to just save it on my computer here. So I'm going to click on this PC. Right now I have two just automatic choices, the My Documents folder or the desktop. Now, in most cases, you would store things in the My Documents folder. That's what that's for. But in my case, I'd like to make a little folder for my finished files out on my desktop. So I'm going to click on Desktop. And then I want to make a little folder for finished files. I've got one for Word sample files. We haven't looked in there yet, but we will pretty soon. I would like to make a new folder. Luckily, there is a button right here that will let me create a new folder. So that's where I'm headed right now, to make a new folder out on my desktop. It makes a new folder named New Folder, but its name is all highlighted, which means I can type right over top of it, and I'll call it Finished Word Documents. Now, you can feel free to drop yours in the My Documents folder, but I would still recommend make a new subfolder, make a new folder, and name it Finished Word Documents. I happen to be putting mine out on the desktop, you can see here. And then by default, it takes whatever is in the very first line and makes that the name of the file. Now, you can override that. You can drag over the name here and name it something else. But in my case, Memo, seems like a decent name for it. So I'm going to make sure I put it in my Finished Word Documents folder by double-clicking on the Finished Word Documents folder. So now you can see that I'm actually standing in that folder that's on my desktop, that's under my name, that lives in the house that Jack built. And I'm going to finish saving that by clicking the Save button right down here. So I haven't really changed anything in the document, but as I look up in the blue title bar now, it says the name of my document. Now you may or may not see the 4-letter file name extension up here, memo.docx. That's not actually a Word thing, that's a Windows thing. So if we have time to do it, maybe we'll talk about how could you get the 4-letter extension to show up, but right now it's not important. So take a moment and save your file. Again, the way I did that, I clicked on File and Save, or I clicked on the little floppy disk icon, and then I made a folder to put it in. So I went to File. Right now, if I choose Save, it won't ask me what to name it because it's already got a name. If I were to click on Save As, maybe I can see more information. So I changed it from OneDrive to this PC. I went to the desktop. I made a new folder that I named Finished Word Documents. I had to type that name and hit the Enter key to actually stand in that folder. And then I kept the same name. You can change it if you like. I just let it be named Memo. When I hit the Enter key, it saved it right into that folder. Now, if I click Save again right now, it just replaces the old one with the new one. All right, so your turn. You're finishing off your letter, and you are saving it, and you are creating a folder to drop it into. So catch up with me there, everybody. So far, we've talked about entering text, editing text, saving our document. Now I'd like to show you something in the background. Not the backstage view, but something that's happening that you just can't see. Some of you may be old enough to remember the old Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland, where they walk in and they catch the guy who's actually the wizard, and he says, "Ignore the man behind the curtain." I'm going to show you behind the curtain right now. I'm going to go to the Home tab, and I would like to introduce this object right here. Kind of looks like a backwards P. I've heard different names for it. Paragraph symbol, hard return. I recently read its official name. It's called a pilcrow, Pilcrow. And if you would like to impress your geeky friends later this week, tell them that you were studying a Microsoft Word class and you learned about the pilcrow. But don't tell them what it is. Pilcrow. You just tell them you learned about it, and they'll be all curious, and they'll go look it up. And they'll be really disappointed when they find out what it is, but you will have kept them busy for 5 minutes looking up the pilcrow. Let me show you what it actually does. So as I hover over it, it says show or hide, and then it's got the pilcrow symbol. So I'm going to actually click on that, and oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff has suddenly appeared. A whole bunch of little pilcrows. Now, if you think about where that pilcrow symbol is, and what we did right at that spot, you'll realize that that pilcrow symbol signifies every place where we hit the Enter key, also called a hard return. So we typed in memo, we hit the Enter key, it jumped down and created the next line. We put in today's date, we hit the Enter key. So every place that there's one of those pilcrows, there's an Enter key. Notice here there's a pilcrow ending this paragraph, and then another pilcrow leaving a little blank gap between the two paragraphs there. Also notice where it did the word wrapping, there is no pilcrow there. It just automatically wrapped at the margin. And if it can't fit a whole word in there, it doesn't hyphenate it by default. It carries the whole word to the next line here. So if you don't see a pilcrow, it means that you got word wrapping, not Enter keys. But anytime I needed to finish off a line that wasn't long enough to word wrap, I needed a pilcrow right there. I needed an Enter key there. Now, one of the reasons I'm telling you about the pilcrow is because the next document that we're going to open, yes, I said open a document that exists already, we're going to go look at pilcrows in there and see that they explain a couple of things. So make sure you have saved the latest version of this document so far. And then let's go open a document from things that we downloaded earlier. So you can leave this document open, and I'd like you to just watch first. I'm going to go up and click on the File tab to go to that backstage view. In here, I'm going to tell it I don't want a new document. I want to open a document that exists already. So I'm going to click the Open command. Here I am back at that same window. This looks very much like my Save window, only now you can see I am opening a document, not saving it. And the document I want to open is on this PC. It's not on the cloud. I'm going to click on this PC. Now again, that gives me certain folders that I've been to recently, including the My Documents folder. but we haven't actually stored anything in the My Documents folder. So instead, I would like to be able to get out to the desktop. Now, I might be able to find that by scrolling down in this list of places that I've worked recently, but I can actually make that job a little bit easier if I just go down here and click on the Browse button. So when I click on Browse, it assumes I want to work on my PC. And the first place mine is looking is the finished Word documents, because that's the last place I was working. But that's not where I stored my downloaded files. I put them in a folder out on my desktop. So I'm going to grab this scroll box right here and scroll up so that I can go to my desktop. And then inside there, I'm going to go find my Word sample files. Now, I don't know how many of you work in a corporate location where you often have a shared folder where you interact with files that are used by everybody. Maybe that's an H drive or an N drive or an S drive. And sometimes you have to go to that drive, and then you have to go into a folder, and then you have to go into a little subfolder. I'm going to show you a way that you can make life easier for those kind of things. It's not going to make life a lot easier for us because I'm only saving myself one step, but I want you to notice this area over here called the Favorites area. Anything that I put over there, I can get to with a single click. For example, maybe I would like to be able to get to my Word sample files for any time I need to open one of these downloaded files. So I'd like you to watch my screen. I'm going to grab the Word sample files and I'm dragging it to the left. And at first I get this little red Ghostbusters slash there. But if I'm just brave, the Ghostbusters slash will disappear. And then I can make sure to drop it between folders over here. I want to be careful not to drop it on a folder. Otherwise, I'm not actually making any kind of quick shortcut. I'm just put it from one folder to another. So I'm looking for this little horizontal line. I let go, and now I have a quick way to get to my Word sample files. That'll be handy for opening files. And then I've also got my folder here about finished Word documents, and that'll be handy when I'm saving files. So I'm going to drag that one over to my favorites area as well. So I'm going to have my Word sample files there. I'm going to have my finished Word documents there. And then I'm going to go click on Word sample files. So why don't you put the video on pause and do what you just saw me do. Let me remind you of how I got to that whole thing here, and then it's going to be your turn to try it. So I'm working on this document, but I want to open a different one. So I'm going to go to the File tab. I'm here in the Backstage view. I'm going to click on Open a Document. I'm going to navigate by browsing on my own computer. I'm going to head to, at first, I had to go to my desktop to be able to see the folder called Word Sample Files. And then I grabbed that folder and dragged it over here and dropped it in my favorites area. And then I grabbed the finished Word document folder and dragged over here and dropped it in my favorites area. So go join me when you come back. We'll all be sitting right here ready to open the next document. So put the video on pause and do those things. Make a couple of folders over there in your favorites area, and then we'll pick up right here. All right, good work, everybody. And just be aware, anytime that you miss a step, you can always rewind the video a little bit if you need to. All right, so now that I've got a couple of things over here in my favorites area, I'm going to go over here to my Word sample files. And then on the right-hand side, on this alphabetized list, I'm going to scroll down to find one named Practice Large Document. And once I find that, I'm going to point at it. I could click on it once and then click Open. Or if you got a good steady hand, you can point at Practice Large Document and just double-click on it. Tap, tap. And it should pop open looking like this. Now you notice it looks a little bit funny here. That's because we opened a document that we downloaded from the web, and it's not considered a trusted location. And right now I can scroll left and right. This is great for those tablet computers where I'm holding it in my hand and then I can use my thumb on the side of the computer to scroll from page to page this way. But I won't be able to edit it. In order to do that, you can see up here in the yellow bar, Protected View, be careful, are you really sure you trust this? And if I want to be able to change anything in it, I have to click on Enable Editing. And now it looks a little bit more like a regular document. And because I've got the Pilcrows turned on, I can actually see a bunch of those there. So this would be a good time to go open that file. Let's see, you created the shortcut over on the side of your screen there. And so now in Word, you go to File, you go to Open, you're going to browse, You drag the folders over here so that you can get to them quickly. And you can go to the folder named Word Sample Files. Single click gets you there. On the right-hand side, scroll down and find Practice Large Document, and then double click on it. And then we'll be ready to go to the next chapter of our lesson. So, catch up with me. Remember, you'll have to click on a yellow bar that says Enable Editing. By the way, when you get there, if you just see a blank document and you don't see the Pilcrows, you can turn the Pilcrow symbol on right here. That was under the Home tab. All right, so go up on that document, and we'll see you in the next chapter. So here we are looking at our document, having clicked on Enable Editing. And if you haven't turned on the Pilcrows, do that now. And so now if I start using my scroll wheel to scroll down, I can see I've basically got a blank page. And then I have a title, and then another title, and then paragraphs. By the way, when I mention the word paragraph, what I'm talking about is everything between Pilcrows. So here's a Pilcrow, and here's a Pilcrow. Everything between there is a paragraph, according to Microsoft Word. Now, sometimes paragraphs are very short. Here's a Pilcrow, and here's a Pilcrow. This is a 4-word paragraph. This is a, 30-word paragraph, and so forth. As far as Word is concerned, a paragraph is everything between the Pilcrows, not just you switching gears and talking about a different subject. And that's going to be really important when we start talking about formatting, because when we talk about formatting a paragraph, we are talking about formatting everything between the Pilcrows. All right, having said that and beaten that horse to death, let us scroll to the top of the document where you see all these Pilcrows. And what I want to do is remove them. I want to remove those Pilcrows and this page break. Now, one of the ways to do that would be to hit the delete key over and over again. Here I'm tapping the delete key. That got rid of one of my Pilcrows. Here I'm tapping the delete key again. That got rid of one of my other Pilcrows. But we've also seen that you can drag to select text and tap the delete or backspace key just once and erase all those things at once. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to drag to select the Pilcrows. I'm dragging straight down and straight down to include the page break. And then tap the delete key. And all the rest of it moves right up there. Your turn to try that. So put the video on pause. You're going to select all those Pilcrows and the page break there on the first page. Tap the delete key to get rid of them, and then your document should look like this. So join me. Remove those Pilcrows, please. So now that we've got our document looking like this, why don't we hide the Pilcrows? Sometimes they kind of get in the way. So I'm going to go up and turn off the Pilcrows. Now it just kind of looks like a regular document. And I'm noticing that these letters look different than these letters. And that's because they have a different font and a different size. And anytime you're trying to figure out, so what's the name of this font and what size is it, you can click in the middle of such a section and then go look up here under your Home tab, specifically in the group called Font. In this case, I can see that the name of this font is Arial, and that its size, right over here, measured in 70/2 of an inch, called points, 14 70/2 of an inch, 14-point tall font. When I click down here on Food for Your Mind, same thing, Arial font, 14-point size. But I can see that things are different down here in this paragraph. When I click down there, gee, what font is being used down there and what size is it? Look at my screen, answer the question before I tell you. Right, the font is named Times New something, kind of hard to tell exactly what that is, and the size is 12. So you notice these letters are not as tall as those, because those ones up here are 14 size, and the ones down here in this big paragraph are 12 size. So why don't you put our video on pause for just a second, try that little trick, click in the midst of a bunch of letters, look to see what font and what size it is, and then click down in the paragraph down here and notice that it is a different font and a different size. So put our video on pause and catch up with me in that discussion. Now, this document, you can see its name up in the title bar, Practice Large Document. I also see the words Compatibility Mode. Maybe more information than you need to know right now, but anytime you see the words Compatibility Mode, it means that that document was created in an older version of Microsoft Word, either the 2003 version or even earlier. Anytime you see that thing up there in the title bar that says Compatibility Mode, that's what it means. Now, you'll never ever have a problem using the new program to look at a file created in the older version of the program. The problem would happen is if you made this document in the new version of the program and then emailed it as an attachment to somebody who was still using Word 2003, they wouldn't be able to open that document. So you never have a problem using the newer program on an older file type. That's the good news here. We're going to be using this document through several of our lessons. So what I'd like to do right now is make a copy of this document by using the Save As command. And in this case, not only am I going to change the name of the file, but I'm going to change the folder that it's in. Right now it's in the downloaded folder. I would like to make a copy of it in our finished files folder. So here we go. I'm going to go up to my File tab. And this time I really need to choose Save As. If I click on Save, or if I click on the little floppy disk icon, all I will be doing is saving it under the same name in the same place. There is no little quick button up here for Save As. There is a keyboard shortcut for it if you care. It's the F12 function key. I'm not going to use that right now, but I'll just keep tossing in these keyboard shortcuts. Again, F12 is Save As. So instead, I'm going to click on the File tab. Here I am in the Backstage view. I'm going to click on Save As. I'm going to browse. Now notice that by default, it's ready to put it back where I opened it from, the Word sample files. I actually want to put it in my finished files folder. Luckily, I have a nice little shortcut for that over in my favorites area. So I'm looking for my finished Word documents folder. I click on it. And then down here, I'm going to change its name from Practice Large Document to Working Large Document. That is, I'm dragging across the word practice and replacing it with the word working. Hey, I'm not actually in the document. I am naming the document, but that same method for selecting one thing and typing in its place, hey, that works here as well. Again, don't worry if you don't see the .docx on the end of that. It's too early to talk about that. Don't worry about it if you don't see it. All right, so I'm changing its name to Working Large Document. I'm changing where I'm going to put it. I brought it in from Word sample files. I'm now saving it in finished Word documents, and I finish that off either by hitting the Enter key or clicking the Save button. And you may notice on my screen right now, let me magnify that, I'm getting a little notice that says your document will be upgraded to the newest file format, which means I won't be working in compatibility mode anymore. Now, if what I want to do is edit this document and then send it back by email attachment to somebody who is still using 2003 version of this, then you can see I would need to make a change here. Instead of choosing OK, I would have to do this. Now watch my screen for just a moment. I'm not going to have you do this, but here's what I would have to do. I'd have to click on Cancel. And then right down here where it says it's going to save it as a Word document, this is a list box. Here's a list arrow here. If I click in that list box, one of my choices is to save it as a Word 97 to 2003 document. And again, you might not see the file name extensions on the end of your documents, but a 2003 file would end in .doc, whereas a normal now Word document would be .docx. By the way, if you don't see any year number attached to that, you're supposed to just understand that means the squeaky, shiny new version of that. Okay, so I'm backing out of there. I am going to save it as a Word document, which is the default choice. And I'm saving that over here into my finished Word documents. And I'm changing its name from Practice Large Document to Working Large Document. So I'd like you to do the same. You should get this little message that says you're now going to have this in the 2007, 2010, 2013, 2016 file format. It uses the same format for all of those. I click on OK or I hit the Enter key. So here's my new name up in the title bar, Working Large Document. Notice it no longer says Compatibility Mode. So your turn to do that. You're going to use the Save As command. You can use F12 if you want the keyboard shortcut. You have opened it from the downloading folder. You're going to save it into the finished Word documents folder, and you're changing its name from Practice Large Document to Working Large Document. All right, catch up with me there, everybody. Now that we've got a document that's a little bit larger than we've been working with, let's talk about navigating around in this document. Now, the name of it says Working Large Document, but as I look in the lower left-hand corner here, It's really a 3-page document, so it's not like the thing is really huge here. Let's talk about navigating slowly up and down. I can use my mouse to move over here into the scroll bar, and I can click on the down pointing arrow. So notice if I click to put my flashing insertion point over here at this space, and then I move to the bottom of the scroll bar and click on the little arrow, I'm moving my view down, but I'm not moving the cursor down. If, on the other hand, I go to the keyboard and I start tapping the down arrow key, at first I am moving the cursor. But when the cursor gets to the bottom of the screen and I keep hitting the down arrow key, now I'm actually scrolling down. And the difference between that and using the arrows on the scroll bar is using the arrows on my keyboard moves the cursor as it scrolls. Using the arrows on the scroll bar doesn't move the cursor, it only moves my viewpoint. I can move a little bit faster if I hold the control key and start tapping up and down arrow keys. Now at first it's a little bit tough to figure out how does it decide where it should stop. Well, I can solve that riddle if I turn on the pilcrows. So here I am at the beginning of the paragraph with my cursor. Control down arrow key, move to the next pilcrow. Next pilcrow, control down arrow key. Control down arrow key. Next paragraph. Next pilcrow. Beginning of the next paragraph. Next pilcrow. So that's going a paragraph at a time when I'm holding the control key and tapping the down arrow key. What if I want to move a whole screen's worth at a time? Well, if I move my mouse over here, I notice this scroll box that I can grab and drag in the scroll bar. But if I want to go a whole screen at a time, I can put my mouse under the scroll box in the scroll bar and click, and it will jump down one screen at a time. Now, I don't need to move the mouse right below the scroll box. I can move it way down here, and then every time I click, it goes one screen at a time until it catches up to me. I can also do that with a couple of keys on my keyboard. There's a key on my keyboard marked Page Up, and every time I tap that Page Up key, it is just like clicking above the scroll box in the scroll bar. I move one screen at a time. Notice the Page Up and Page Down key don't necessarily move me to the bottom of the next printed page. They move me to the bottom of the next screen's worth. As far as whether I get to the bottom of the printed page, that's dependent on how far I am zoomed in and zoomed out. So the keys that say Page Up and Page Down, names are a little bit misleading. They really should be called Screen Up and Screen Down. So why don't you just take just a moment and try out some of those methods that I've been using. Grabbing the scroll box, clicking above or below the scroll box, using the down arrow key to move the cursor, using the down arrow on the scroll bar to move your viewpoint without moving the cursor. Control and up arrow, control and down arrow to move one paragraph at a time, and then the page up and page down keys to move one screen at a time. So please put your video on pause and try each of those things that we've been talking about. Then when we come back, I'm going to start talking about moving within a paragraph. All right, I'm rolling the scroll wheel to move my mouse up into one of the bigger paragraphs up here, and I'm just going to click to put my cursor right in the middle of a line. You can see my cursor. Remember, it's also called the flashing insertion point. So there's my cursor sitting right there. Now, if I use arrow keys to move up and down, left and right, we've all done that. But I'd like to start talking about a key other than arrow keys that lets me move around in a line. For example, I see a key marked Home. When I tap the Home key, can everybody see what that did with my cursor? It's all of a sudden right over here at the beginning of a line. There's my cursor. It's not flashing when I zoom in with my third-party flashing software there. So that was the Home key. Moves me to the beginning of a line. Moving this way with the arrow key, tapping the Home key. There I am at the beginning of the line. There's another key, usually real near my Home key, marked End. And if I tap the End key, notice my cursor is now over here at the right end of the line. So Home moves me to the left, End moves me to the right. Now, what if I want to move all the way to the beginning of the document? Well, I can add the Control key. So I'm holding the Control key and tapping the Home key. Boop! There I am right in the upper left-hand corner of the first line. Let's see, so there was Home and End. That was Control Home. How do you suppose I could get to the very end of the document? Hopefully somebody's saying, well, maybe that would be Control and the End key. I'm going to do that right now. Holding the Control. While I'm holding Control, I'm tapping the End key. Bang! There I am right at the last page. I am now at the bottom of page 3 of 3. So I'd like you to try that. You're going to click in the middle of a line. You're going to test the home key, which goes to the beginning of the line. You're going to test the end key that goes to the end of the line. You're going to try control home that goes to the beginning of the document. You're going to try control end that goes to the end of the document. Try that out for a couple of seconds. Put our video on pause. When we come back, we're going to start talking about selecting objects. Now, one of the ways to select objects, why don't I go to the beginning of my document here? What keyboard combination did I just do to get there? Hopefully you're saying, why, Dan, you fool, can't you remember anything for 2 seconds? That must have been Control and Home, and you would be right. I'm going to turn off the pilcrows here. And this time I want to select text. Now, pretty much everybody knows that you can grab your mouse and drag sideways across text. You can drag up and down across text. Using that method, you don't always have to drag to the right and down. You can drag up. You can drag up and to the left. Notice you can move up or down, but not both. From the place that I started, I can move up or down, but not both. A couple other ways that I can select text. If I want to select a whole line, I can move my mouse out into this margin. Now, most of the time when I see an arrow, it points up and left. But notice out here in the margin, it points up and right, and that has a significance. When I click with the up pointing right arrow, it selects that whole line. Doesn't stop at the end of the sentence. It goes to the end of the line. If I move down and then I hold the mouse button down as I'm dragging, I can select several lines at once, either up or down, but not both. So this time I'm not starting in the middle of the line, this time I'm starting out in the margins to drag up or down, to select entire lines, multiple lines. And if I wanted to select an entire paragraph, I can move out here, just make sure I'm at the beginning of the paragraph, and drag straight down, and if I keep dragging down off the bottom, it begins scrolling up to me. So these are ways to select large blocks of text. By the way, there's a way to do that through the keyboard as well. While I'm mentioning it here, remember how I could use down arrow keys to move my mouse one line at a time, or control down arrow key to move one paragraph at a time? Well, what I'd like you to notice now is if I add the shift key to that, I won't just be moving my cursor, I'll be selecting. So right now I'm holding the shift key, and while I'm holding the shift key, I'm tapping the down arrow key. Oh look, it's as though I had clicked out in the margin. And if I keep the shift key down and keep tapping the down arrow key, my cursor, you can't see it flashing, but it is actually moving down in that paragraph, and because I have the shift key down, it is selecting as it goes. What do you suppose would happen if I held Control and Shift and tapped the down arrow key? Well, that's what I'm about to do now. Control and Shift, I'm tapping the down arrow key. Now it's going a paragraph at a time because of the Control key, and it's selecting as it goes because of the Shift key. And again, I can go up or down from the area that I had started, but not both. I can go one direction or the other. Okay, so it's time for you to try this. It's just like the navigating was, only we're adding the Shift key. You can either drag up and down within a paragraph, you can click to get a whole line, you can click and drag to take more than one line. You can use the down arrow key to move your cursor. You can use the down arrow key while you're holding the shift key to select while you're moving the cursor. And if you want to control and shift and down arrow, you can select entire paragraphs at a time. So now's the time for you to try that, everybody. Last we were talking about navigating. This time we're talking about selecting. And the selecting is going to be really important when we start formatting things, changing the font, changing the color, changing the size of the letters. You must select to effect. So practice your selecting and your navigating for just a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll start talking about selecting to effect. Now we come to the first portion of our lesson where it's really important to be able to select, because we're going to start talking about formatting things in our document. And you must select to effect. That is, you have to tell it what to work on and then tell it what to do to that text. In my case, I'd like to move to the top of the document, so I'm going to use Control and Home. Now, let's say that I would like to take this title up here and make it left aligned instead of centered. I'd like to move it to the left edge of the paper like this title is. So first I need to select it. I could drag across it to select it, but we had a way where you could select an entire line, and to do that we had to move out here into the margin, so we had the up pointing right arrow. That way with a single click I can select that entire line. And notice what popped up on screen. This is called the Mini Formatting Toolbar. Microsoft knows that if you select text that you've already typed, it's usually because you want to change the formatting somehow. So this little mini toolbar has the things in it that people use most often when formatting text that already exists. Notice the B is already turned on here. As I hover over that, it says that's bold letters, extra heavy dark. By the way, you'll notice as I moved away from that quick formatting toolbar, it disappeared and it's not easy to get back. Luckily, all I have to do is go up to my home ribbon and I can get to those things that were in my quick formatting toolbar. So for example, I said maybe I'd like to move the letters to the left or to the right. Here's some little buttons that will do that. Here's a line left. Notice this one is already selected. That's why these words are centered on the page. Maybe I want to move them to the right side of the page. If I click on that button, there they are over at the right-hand side. Here I am moving them to the left-hand side. Here I am recentering them. How did it know what words to move? Because I had pre-selected them. You must select to effect. Let's say that I would like to change the size of those letters. I've still got them selected. I'm going to go up here to the size box, and I'm going to boost them from 14 to maybe 20. By the way, I haven't clicked on 20 yet, but notice I can see what 20 would look like. This is one of my favorite features of the Microsoft Office suite. It's called Live Preview. I get to see what the thing would look like before I actually click to commit to it. This is a big thing because in the old days, we used to select text and we would say, I think that's going to look great as a 28-point font. And then I click on 28 and I go, oh, that's not as good as I was hoping it would look because I couldn't see it ahead of time. Or I'm thinking, I like purple letters, and so I'm going to choose purple letters, and then they look awful. I'm not really doing that yet. But again, these are going to be things that I can see in my live preview. If I don't like what I see, I move away from it. If I do like what I see, I go ahead and click on it. So I'm going to make those letters 28-point size. And then I'm going to go up right up here under my home ribbon in the font group. I've got a way to set the letter color. Now, if I just click on that red A right there, I will get red letters. But maybe I want some other color than red. That's what this little sneaky list arrow is about right here. When I click on this, I see several colors. They are divided into what are called theme colors and standard colors. We'll be talking about themes in a few minutes. But again, I'm getting that lovely live preview. And when I see something I like, I click on it. And then to see what it really looks like, I click away from it so it's not selected anymore. So why don't you take just a second and do that? Select that top title. Move it to the left, move it to the right. Stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight. Change the size. Change the color. And then come on back and we'll do some more formatting together. All right, let's say that I want to affect multiple lines this time. I've got these little titles at the beginning of several of my paragraphs. And maybe I would like to do something to, say, 3 of those at once. Maybe I'd like to turn them into fire engine red or dark blue. Maybe those are my company colors, light green and dark blue. So I'm going to sort of brand this document using the company colors. So first I'm going to select this line. And then I'd also like to select this line at the same time. But when I click out in the margin, okay, I've got that second one selected, but I've lost the first one. Now, some of my more experienced Word users might know about the control-click trick. And that's what I'm about to do. So first thing I'm going to do is click out here in the margin. There's the first one that I wanted to select. Now I'm going to scroll down with my scroll wheel, and I'm going to move out into the margin next to what is Books and Beyond, and I'm going to hold the Control key as I click. Oh, look, that lets me choose 2 things at once. And I can keep doing that. I'm going to scroll down some more. I'm going to hold the Control key and click here. And now I've got 3 things selected at once. And whatever I do next will affect all 3 of those lines. For example, maybe I'll go up here and use that same green color that I was using on the title. And if you look closely, the thing that used to have a red bar under the A now has that light green bar under the A. And if I just click on that, oh look, I've got that green down here. All right, it's your turn to try that. So you're going to select several of those titles. Remember, you're going to click out in the margin. You're going to hold the Control key and click to get a second one. Control click to get a third one. And then set the letter color right up here, either through the pull down arrow or by reusing a color that you might have used for the title. Have at it. Catch up to me. All right, good work. Let's move down to the end of our document. Remember our old keyboard shortcut by now? Control and the Pilsudski key? No, there's no Pilsudski key. I'm talking about Control and End. Just checking to see who's listening here. So I'm using Control and End to get down to the end of the document. And let's say that what I would like to do down here is change the font of this last paragraph. So I'm going to select the whole paragraph. Yes, I could drag from end to end, or I could move out in the margin and drag downward or drag upward, select that whole paragraph. There's a couple other keyboard ways to do that, but I don't want to overwhelm you with things. And what I'd like to do here is change the font. Right now it's Times New Roman. But maybe I'd like it to look like an old school typewriter. The usual font on an old school typewriter is called Courier, Courier. Word has a font called Courier New, and I'd like to choose that. So I'm moving up either to my quick formatting mini toolbar, or I can move up to my home ribbon, and I'm going to click on the pull down arrow in this list of fonts. And man, what a list we have. As I roll up and down in that list, I can actually see it happening in the background. I've got that live preview thing going on back there. Now, sometimes it's partially covered up by that list itself. So I'm trying to find a font called Courier New. I'm going to start scrolling down through the alphabetized list. I'm down to CO, I'm down to COU. There it is, Courier New. I'm hovering over it. Yeah, that looks like an old school typewriter. I'm clicking on it. So I can change the font, I can change the color. I've got all kinds of formatting features here. Make the font a little bigger, a little smaller. There's a button here that I can make everything uppercase or lowercase. We've got some fancy schmancy word art, it's called, with all kinds of reflections and glowing features and so forth. Pretty much everything up here in the font group is kind of fun to play with, but you have to select the text first. So what I just did was I selected that last paragraph and I changed its font to Courier New. I'd like you to select that last paragraph and I'd like you to just play with it a little bit. Try bold, try italic, try underline. We've got strike through, we've got superscript, we've got subscript, got all kinds of cool text effects. I'd like you to just play and make sure you're working on that very last paragraph. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and then we're going to come back and I want to talk about kind of a cool feature that's available only in Word and PowerPoint, and we'll take advantage of it here in Word. So pause the screen, select that last paragraph, get in there and play a little bit. When you're done, unpause the screen, and we'll start talking about a special feature that's only available in Word and PowerPoint. So get in there and play for a minute. Put the video on pause, play around a bit, and then come on back. All right, so here comes this new thing. Let's stop for a moment and save our latest document. Come on up and click on that little floppy disk up in the upper right corner. Or maybe you like the keyboard shortcut that it's showing me, Control-S. So go ahead and click on that. Now we're not using Save As, so it just assumes that we want to keep the same file name and replace the old version with the new version. And now let's close this file. Now one of the ways to do that is to go up here to the upper right corner and click the Close button. Let's go ahead and do it that way. So click that Close button to close this document. Now when I do that, I can see that my memo document is still open behind there. And maybe I want to turn the pilcrows off. All right, here's what I'd like everybody to do. First of all, you're going to watch me do this, and then you're going to join me. So it's a special thing that happens when we reopen a Word document. So I'm going to go to my File menu. I'm going to tell it to open a file. I'm going to slide down here and browse for my document. Here's the one I was working on most recently, Working Large Document. I'm going to double-click to reopen that. And look what's happening down here in the bottom right corner. Welcome back. Pick up where you left off. How are we doing so far? 2 minutes ago. So if I click on that, it takes me right to that place that I was working earlier. The last place I was working when I closed this document. Boy, is that handy. Maybe this is a 20-page document and I was fixing something on page 12, and I'd kind of like to pick up where I left off. I can just click on that little button that appeared in the bottom right corner to take me right to the last place I'd been working before I saved that file. How cool is that? So it's your turn to make that happen for you. You've recently closed the Working Large document. Go back up to the File menu, choose Open. Slide down and click on Browse. It should take you to the last folder you were working in, as long as you haven't turned your computer off between then and now. And you should get that little thing appear in the bottom right corner when you go to open that document, and you can click on that little placeholder and it will take you right to this place where you were working last. So catch up with me. We were working at the last part of that document. Reopen it and let it take you to pick up where you left off. Early on in our lessons, I mentioned that we were going to talk about different kinds of formatting. Formatting that affects the entire document, formatting that affects just a paragraph, formatting that affects only certain words that I've pre-selected, and we've seen a couple of those. We saw formatting the entire document involved maybe setting the orientation. Are we going to go portrait or landscape? What size paper are we going to use? We can set those things up, and those are good to do before you actually start your typing. It can be done afterwards, but suddenly your document rewraps itself, all of these paragraphs and so forth. So these are things that are good to do fairly early on as far as setting up the entire document. And then recently we saw that we could affect this paragraph by changing its font, for example. But maybe there are other things I want to do to draw attention to a paragraph. Maybe I'd like to indent the sides, temporarily increasing the white space and narrowing the paragraph, that is, narrowing where it word wraps as I'm typing. Maybe I want to change the line spacing, how much space there is between the lines in a paragraph. I grew up as a child of the 60s, and back then we had a mechanical typewriter. We didn't even have an electric typewriter where I grew up. So you would put the paper in the roller on your typewriter, and you would roll this, it was called the carriage. You would roll the carriage forward and bring the paper up to where you were going to type. So you would type, and when you finished a line, it wouldn't wrap. You would have to grab this little handle on the typewriter and drag it sideways, and that would roll the platen up so that you could get to the next line, and it would take that carriage and move it over to the beginning of the next line. By the way, any of you who have done any programming, you'll see this term carriage return and line feed. That's old school term for that stuff I used to have to do on a typewriter. But I digress. I'm also thinking of maybe in elementary school, junior high, we would be assigned to read a book and then we had to write a book report. And very often the teacher would say, I want that to be 2 pages double spaced. So when we talk about double spacing, we're talking about the vertical distance between lines in a paragraph. And that's what I'd like to talk about now. Now, when you're formatting a paragraph, many times you don't actually have to select the entire paragraph to format it, depending on what sort of things you're doing. If, for example, I wanted to change the font, as we did, I really did have to select all the characters in the paragraph to change the font. But for things like indentation and line spacing, you just have to click to put your cursor, again, also called the insertion point, in the middle of such a paragraph. So I'm going to do that with this paragraph right here that starts with books and beyond has always been a place to go for your reading pleasure. So I'm going to click anywhere in that big paragraph. Now remember what a paragraph is according to Word. If I go up there and turn on the Pilcrows under the Home tab, so here's the end of one paragraph, here's a blank paragraph, here's this paragraph, no Pilcrows at the end here, it just word wrapped, here's the end of the paragraph. So I'm talking about everything between here and here is this paragraph, and I've just clicked in the middle of it. I'm going to turn the Pilcrows off right now. And so what I want to do now is set the line spacing to be what's called double spaced. Now I notice under my Home tab, there's this whole paragraph group up here, and the names don't really show up till you hover over them, but if I look at this one right here, I can see that its name is line and paragraph spacing, and then they try to tell me how this works. So if I click on that right now, I get a little pull-down list, and I can see that it's single spaced, but I could make it 1.5 spaced, or the dreaded double spaced, even the even more dreaded triple spaced. Usually that's kind of overboard, but if my teacher said I needed to do something double spaced, then this would be a nice way to do it. And I love that live preview. So I'm going to back out of there, and I haven't actually made that choice, and I'm just going to click away. Let me talk about another way that I could get in and look at the line spacing. You may remember our discussions of these little guys, little down pointing right arrows, called the dialog launcher. If I click the dialog launcher, I am taken to a relatively old school dialog window where I can set the line spacing right here. Notice many same choices and some other ones that weren't on that list. I can also talk about indenting left and right. We're going to be doing that in just a moment. So this is a nice window to control a lot of things about a paragraph. For the moment, I'm going to cancel. So I want to switch gears for a second. I want to talk about indenting my paragraph. Again, that's temporarily increasing the white margin space. Well, here's a little button that will do that. I'm hovering over it. It says Increase Indent. Notice I'm not getting a live preview of that. And when I click on it, oh, look what it did. It indented the left side of that paragraph roughly 1/2 inch. Now, what if I want to indent the right-hand side of it? Turns out there's no button for that. I see a little button with an arrow pointing the other direction. It says Decrease Indent. And when I click on it, why, it decreases the indent on the left side of the paragraph. So what if I want to indent both sides? Well, okay, a couple of things we need to talk about there. Now, I've also mentioned earlier left aligned, centered, right aligned. There's a fourth one up here called Justified, and I'm going to click on that. And notice how it nicely lines up both the right and left sides of my paragraph. And this way, when I indent, it will be a little bit easier to see that I'm actually indenting that thing. But there's no quick button for it. So I'm going to go to my dialog launcher for paragraphs, where I could indent the left and the right side. Now I can spin it up here, 1/10 of an inch at a time. I can see a little preview down here. And I can do the right side, only this time instead of spinning it up, I'm just going to drag across the 0. I'm going to type in 0.5. It assumes I mean inches. And then once I click on OK, there it is, indented from both sides, about 1/2 inch. And it's easy to tell that it's indented because I've got that right side lined up nicely when I justified it. So why don't you take just a moment and do that. Click anywhere in this paragraph. Books and Beyond has always been a place, blah, blah, blah. And you can play with the justified alignment, and you can play with the indenting left and right. So the justified alignment can be done here, the left side indenting can be done up here, but if you want to control all of that stuff, maybe go to the dialog launcher, where you could notice the alignment here, left aligned, right aligned, centered, justified. You could have done that here. And then I was able to indent 1/2 inch on each side. And you can see that I've got all the line spacing right here. So take a moment and go to this dialog window. So far I'm going to cancel. Remember to get there, you're going to go to the Home tab here in the paragraph group. You're going to click on the dialog launcher. So let's increase left and right indent 1/2 inch. We'll make sure that it's justified so that both left and right are lined up nicely. And while you're at it, while you're in there, why don't you do the double spacing in there as well? That could be right here, double spacing. All right, your turn to catch up with me for that. Sometimes when I'm working on a document, I realize that the order of things that I've typed might be improved. This is going to let us talk about something called cut and paste, and another closely related feature called drag and drop. So let's go. I'm scrolling upwards. I'm going to find this paragraph whose label says easy listening, and I'm realizing I would like to change the order of these last 2 sentences. So one of the ways to do this is through what's called cut and paste. So I'm going to select the text that I want to cut. This was my step 1 of my 4-step process. Step 2, I'm going to make the cut. One of the ways to do that, right up here in the clipboard group, I'm going to hover over these scissors. As I do that, it tells me there's a keyboard shortcut for it, Control and X. Or if you're a big right clicker like I am, you can right click in the selected text and make a cut there. Now, since I have this on screen right now, I'm just going to go through with that, cut that sentence, and you'll see that it's gone. But it's not totally gone. It's being stored right now in an area of RAM memory called the clipboard, hence the name of this group of buttons here, the clipboard group. And now what I want to do is paste it, but before I paste it, I have to move the flashing insertion point to the place where I want to paste it. If I paste it right now, it's going to go right back in where I took it out. So my step 3 of my cut and paste is to place my flashing insertion point down here in this case, and then the last step is to paste. I'm going to go up here and hover over the paste button. It tells me there's a keyboard shortcut for that, Control V. You know, the V in paste. Yeah. I've heard of silent letters like the L in walk. The V in paste must not only be silent, apparently it's an invisible letter, the invisible V in paste. But I digress. So I'm just going to go click on that paste button, and that thing that I copied is pasted right in there. Why don't you go try that? Put our video on pause. go select that sentence about you can find musical selections, blah, 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 cut it, put the insertion point after tape of your choice, and then paste it, just like you saw me do. Maybe you'd like to right-click, maybe you'd like to use the keyboard shortcut, but do a cut and a paste, and then come on back. Next, I'd like to talk about another way to quickly cut and paste. This is a method called drag and drop. And sometimes people discover drag and drop totally by mistake. So next, I'd like to talk about the term drag and drop. This is a quick way to cut and paste. Many times people will discover drag and drop totally by mistake. Let's imagine, for example, that I would like to select this line about you will find our inventory is complete, blah, blah, blah. But I'm dragging to start selecting it, and I let go a little too early. And then I figure, oh, I'll just go start that over again. I'll grab right over here, and I'll start dragging to the right, and all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute, those words have moved around. This doesn't make sense anymore. You will find that is complete. And how much you'll spend your purchase on our inventory, you'll find that is complete. Actually, you will find that was originally right over here next to our inventory. I just accidentally discovered drag and drop. The good news is I can now point at that selected object and drag it back here. Can you see the little tick mark following me around? I'm going to drop it right here before our inventory. I have just dragged and dropped to put that back in place. Only that was by accident. Let's see how I might now do that on purpose. I want to swap the order of these last two sentences. So one of the ways to do that, I'm going to select that whole sentence. And then instead of going through the cut and paste, I'm simply going to point in the middle of it, drag down, I see the little tick mark following me, drop it right at the end of the paragraph and let go. And I have cut and pasted through drag and drop. All right, again, this is your turn. So put our video on pause, rewind it if you need to. Don't bother doing the mistaken one, do the right one. Select that whole sentence, let go, point in the middle of it, drag it down, and you will have swapped the order quicker than copy and paste. So I'd like you to try that. Select that text and then drag it down, and that's the quickest way to cut and paste. Catch up with me. Now that's all well and good if I'm moving things around inside of a document, but what if I want to copy something from one document to another? Let's talk about that for a moment. This is going to be copy and paste rather than cut and paste. So again, the steps are going to be foursquare. I have to select the thing to make a copy of. Then I have to make the copy. Then I have to place my insertion point where I want to paste. And then I do the pasting. Okay, so this time it won't disappear. I'm not cutting and pasting. I'm copying and pasting. But first, I want to have a new document. Now we've seen that if we go up to the File menu and choose New, we've got all these templates here. What if I just want to make a brand new document? Well, there is a keyboard shortcut for this. It's Control and the letter N as in new. And that's a pretty universal keyboard shortcut for pretty much every program you're going to see. Control N, not end. We know that Control End takes me to the end of my document. Control N makes a brand new document, and that's what I'm going to do right now. Control N. So there's a brand new document. And if I want to switch back and forth between the documents that I have open, I can do that down on my taskbar, which you can't see right now. Or in Word, I can go up to my View tab, and I've got a choice here about Switch Windows. And when I click on the Switch Windows button, here is my memo document is still open, here's my working large document is still open, and then here's the generic name document 3 because I haven't saved it yet. But this will give me a place to paste what I wanted copied. So I'm going to switch windows back to my working large document. I'm going to go select maybe all of this right here, the label and that paragraph. And then I'm going to make a copy, not a cut. I don't want to disappear it out of this window. I just want to copy it. So here's the button for copying. As I hover, it tells me the keyboard shortcut for that is Control-C. No invisible letters there. I'm just going to click on copy. If I was doing this in Excel, I would see a flashing marquee around the thing I copied. In Word, you don't really get any clue that you've copied it. You just have to trust that you've copied it. And now I'm going to switch over to that other window, the new document I've just created. That was my View tab. Switch windows. Go into my newly created document 3. And now I want to paste in there. Let's see. I don't see the paste command because I'm looking under the View tab right now. The paste command is over here under the Home tab, or Control-V, or any of those things that we've seen, right-clicking down here to paste. So I'm just going to paste that bad boy, and there it is right there. So this wasn't a cut and paste, this was a copy and paste. So why don't you try that? What was my keyboard shortcut for make a brand new document? Hopefully leaping to the tip of your tongue was Control and the letter N. And then to switch back and forth between the documents, we went to the View tab and switch windows. We went to Working Large Document. We selected the thing that we wanted to copy. Then we went to our View tab and switched windows back to the new document. And we pasted. So your turn. Catch up with me there. Rewind the video if you need to, but I think you got the steps in your head. Try it out. Catch up with me, copying and pasting between documents. What I'd like to do next is put together a list of the different types of music that are offered. And in this case, the order of them doesn't matter. We're going to talk about making two kinds of lists. A bulleted list with little dots, or a numbered list with, who would have guessed, numbers. You use a numbered list when the order of the objects is important. But in this case, this list of different types of music, the order is not particularly important, so I want to do bullets instead. But maybe I'm not quite sure how to start bullets. In the old days, I would have gone to the Help window. There would be a little menu command up here that says Help. Now they've replaced it with this choice, Tell me what you want to do. So I'm going to click in there, and then I'm going to start typing, because what I want to do is add bullets. So I start typing the word bullets. And the more I type, the more focused it becomes. And then, in fact, here is the way to turn on bullets. I click on it, and it's actually going to do it. It's not telling me, oh, you should go to the blah, blah menu and do this. It's actually letting me do it right here. So I'm going to click on this bullets command. Hey, there comes a bullet. And then I want to say, all right, one kind of music is going to be rock. But there are different kinds of rock. So when I hit the Enter key, it assumes that I want to continue that bulleted list. Maybe I want to make what's called a sub-bullet, that is, subcategories of rock. Well, one of the ways to do that is to hit the Tab key. That's what I'm about to do right now. And notice how it indents and it changes the look of the bullet. So I can talk about different kinds of rock. I can talk about rock and roll. I can talk about headbanger rock. When I hit the Enter key, it assumes that I want another bullet at that level. But in this case, I want to switch from rock to gospel, which means I want to make another bullet like this one. Well, a couple of ways to do that. To make a sub-bullet, I hit the Tab key and it indents. But if I want to go the other direction, if I want to outdent, I hold the Shift key and hit the Tab key. And I'm going to do that again. And now I've got that first type of bullet, so I can mention gospel. I'm going to hit the Enter key. It assumes I want another one at that level. So if I want to indent that and talk about other kinds of gospel, I can do that. Or I can say, now I want to talk about jazz, which happens to be my personal favorite. I'm going to hit the Enter key, and I want to put subcategories of jazz. I'm using the Tab key to indent. So I'm going to have, let's see, old school swing jazz. We're going to have, from the 50s, something called bebop. Then there's something called the post-bop era. And then there's more modern jazz. And then there's the soft jazz. And so forth. And if I need to indent even more, I can use Tab, Tab, Tab. You can see there are several levels of bullets and sub-bullets. So what if I'm done with my list? How do I tell it I don't want to do buttons anymore? Well, here's one of the ways. I can hit the Enter key, and it assumes I want a bullet just like the previous level. And if I hit Enter key one more time, I am no longer bulleting. So I would like you to try that. I'd like you to try what I just did. Start out by using the Tell Me What You Want to Do button up here. It's always up there. And you're going to type in bullets, and as you do that, it'll find the bullets button. You can click on it then, and it'll make a bullet for you, and then you can create this list. Remember, to indent to make a sub-bullet, you use the Tab key. To outdent to make it a previous level bullet, you use Shift and Tab. All right, catch up with me. All right, I'm hitting the Enter key a couple of times to stop my bulleted list, and maybe one more Enter to leave a little gap. Now I want to talk about a closely related thing called numbered lists. If we go to our Home tab, we will discover there is a button right here for bullets, and right next door there's a button for numbering. Also, I should mention that next to each of those is a sneaky little list arrow. Or I could choose other kinds of bullets, or I can choose what kind of numbering I want. Do I want a number with a period? Do I want a number with a parenthesis? Do I want Roman numerals? I'm going to try this way this time for my numbers. I'm going to click the little pull down arrow and I'm going to choose the ones with the parentheses here. Notice I'm getting a live preview down there as I'm doing it. I'm clicking. So here's my first step. Now I'm a part-time musician, so maybe I want to talk about the steps to recording a piece. So let's see, starting right from the beginning, I have to get out my horn. I need to put it together. Now you might have just seen something happen there. I didn't capitalize the first letter, but as I began typing and hit the spacebar, it assumed that I wanted a capital letter as the beginning of a new sentence. So put the horn together. Step 3, take out the music. Now maybe I want some sub numbers here. So I'm going to hit the enter key, and then I'm going to use the tab key to get a sub number. In this case, it pulls up a lowercase letter. So when I take out the music, I have to decide whether it will be bebop or swing. Got too many E's in my B there. Also, you might notice the red squiggle here. That's my spell checker running. I'm going to right-click on that word, and it offers me other words that I might have meant, and I can click on, yeah, this is the one I wanted. Lovely spell checker there. Now, when I hit the enter key, it assumes that I want another one at that level, but if I want to make this one a number 4 instead, what do you suppose I'm going to do? I'm going to do exactly what I did with the bullets. I'm going to Shift-Tab. Holding the Shift key, hitting Tab, I am now making a number 4. So I've taken out the music. Now I want to set the music on the music stand. I want to turn on the microphone. And then I'm going to swing, baby. Yeah, I actually know musicians who kind of talk that way. Yeah, baby, let's swing. Don't worry about the club owner. Sweat not, baby. Yeah, I know people who talk that way. And then when I tell it that I want to stop numbering, I could do that by hitting the enter key enough times to stop the numbering. All right, your turn. So you're going to go turn on the numbering. We did it up here this time. A little pull down arrow, sneaky list arrow next to the numbering button. You can choose one of the different ones here. If you want to go with Roman numerals or something like that, feel free to do that. And then put together some steps. They can either be the steps like I'm doing, or they could be steps to something that you do very often. So make a numbered list, everybody. Our last subject of discussion for this module is going to involve something called themes. So a theme is something that's available all across the Office suite. It's a combination of fonts and colors and special lighting and shadow effects that you will only see when you make diagrams. But the fonts and the colors you'll see during the regular typing. The whole idea of a theme is getting a consistent look across all of your documents in the Office suite. So for example, I could have the same fonts and colors in my 3-panel brochures that I create in Word, same fonts and colors that I use in my PowerPoint presentations, same fonts and colors that I use in my charts and graphs in Microsoft Excel, for example. So this is one of the things that works all the way across the Office suite. I'd also like to introduce some of these styles up here. Under the Home tab, there's something called the Styles Gallery. So we'll be talking a little bit more about text styles in a future subject, but right now is a place where I can introduce them because they kind of tie into the themes. So first thing I'm going to do is go up here and click on the Heading 1 Style in the Style Gallery, and then down here I'm going to click to place my cursor, and then I want to talk about the Bebop era. And so I'm going to make that a Heading 1 style. Notice as I hover over it, I can see the live preview. I'm going to click on that. And when I look up here in the corner, I can see that the theme called Heading 1 consists of Calibri Light font in 16-point size. Now, when I hit the Enter key, it is no longer Heading 1. It has switched to something called the Normal style. And the Normal style seems to be Times New Roman 12-point font. Right, and now I'm going to type a little something about the Bebop era, but I'm not going to make you watch me type it. I'll put the video on pause, I'll type the thing in, and then I'll bring it back. So there's the stuff that I've typed in, and I would like you to do the same. So we had a heading 1 for the Bebop era. We hit the Enter key, it switched to normal font. And then maybe let me magnify this on screen a little bit to make it easier to read. I'm using some third-party zooming software there. All right, so enter that text, hit the Enter key one more time, and then we're going to come back and see how the themes will affect how this looks. All right, everybody, welcome back. So I'm going to zoom out with my third-party software here. I'm going to leave this down near the bottom of the screen, and you'll see why in just a moment. So here's what I would recommend. Everybody, right now, click to put your cursor in that heading 1 style right there, the Bebop era. This will make it easier to see changes when we start changing our theme. So click to put your cursor right there in the Bebop era. And we're moving on. So I'm going up to the Design tab here in Word, and my Themes button is way over here at the left. And when I click on it, I see a list of these themes. They seem to have slightly different fonts. They seem to have different color swatches in there. But I might not really see much of anything changing right now, because the main thing that's changing is that heading 1 style, and I can't see it. It's covered up by my list of themes. Gee, that's kind of irritating. But there is something I can do about that. I can go down here to the bottom right corner. Notice I get a 2-headed arrow, and when I grab that, I can readjust this list of themes. Now, one bad thing is next time I go to get the list of themes, it will forget that I had resized it like that. So this is just a one-time little band-aid here, but it does let me expose the thing that I want to view while I'm doing my live preview. Here I am now hovering over these different themes. I can see the colors of those letters changing in that heading 1 style. I can see the font itself changing in the heading 1 style. So I would like you to try what you just saw me do. So you're clicking to put your cursor in the Bebop era title. That's very important here. Click on the pull-down arrow of the themes. Grab the bottom right corner of the themes gallery, stretch it over here, and then hover over the different themes to see the live preview of how those fonts and colors would change. Your turn. Now, once again, if I go up and click on the list of themes, I see they've got kind of interesting names here. I'm not sure if I can zoom in on them using my third-party software. Yes, I can. So I've got names like Facet and Integral and Ion. And you can see that the fonts are different and the color swatches are different. Facet, Integral, and Ion. So one of the interesting things about a theme is that it's available all across the Office suite. So I'm going to take a moment and open up Excel so that we can see the same themes with names like Facet and Integral and Ion will be available on the Excel side. So I'm sliding down to my taskbar. You can't really see me doing that. I'm starting up Excel. Welcome to our discussion, Mr. Excel. I'm going to start a blank workbook here. And then in Excel, the themes are listed under the Page Layout command tab. And as I click on the pull-down arrow for the themes, oh, look at the names that I have available here. Facet and Integral and Ion and so forth. So the themes is one of the few things that goes all across the Office suite. And again, the idea is to give that nice branded look to your Word documents, make them look similar to your PowerPoint presentations, make them look similar to your Excel documents. And I'm going to close Excel right now. So you've had a chance to just get a little bit of exposure to the idea of a theme here. And again, the theme is combinations of fonts and colors. And we didn't see any of the special lighting and shadow effects because those only show up for diagrams and charts. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging out and checking out Module 1 of our Microsoft Word 2016 lessons. This is Dan McAllister signing off of our first part, Module 1. Hopefully you'll come back and do Module 2. Welcome, or as the case may be for some of you, welcome back to the wonderful world of Word 2016. As you can see here, my name is Dan McAllister, and I'm your presenter today, and we're about to start Module 2. Now, we realize that not everybody takes these modules in order. Maybe you looked at the subjects in Module 1 and told yourself, oh, I know how to do all of those. I'm just going to go jump into Module 2. You'll need some practice files. And I'm not going to start every single module with here's how you get to the practice files. So if you didn't take Module 1, you might want to go back and look at just the beginning of it to see how to get the practice files that we're going to use in our lessons. So when they arrive, they will arrive in a zipped folder. I recommend you put the zip folder out on the desktop and then extract the documents out of the zip folder and you'll wind up with a expanded folder that looks like this. Let me step out of here and go to my desktop for just a moment. So you will wind up with a folder out here that says Word Sample Files, and when you double click to look in it, here are the sample files that we'll be using. And then as part of Module 1, again, let me step out of here. As part of Module 1, we also made this folder named Finished Word Documents. And if you're not quite sure how to make a folder on your desktop, here's how you can do it. I'm a big right clicker, so I'm going to right click on the desktop, and I see a choice called New and a little submenu. I'm going to make a new folder, named New Folder, and then you can begin typing whatever you want to name that, in this case, Finished Word Documents. So I'm going to delete that off my screen. Yes, I really wanted to. So I'd like you to set up that much. Create that folder to drop your finished documents in, download and expand the Word Sample Files folder, and we're going to jump right in. So put the video on pause and go do that much, and then come on back and we're going to start Word. All right, everybody, welcome back. You can't see my taskbar down at the bottom of my screen, but I do have a blue W down there, and I'm going to click on that right now to start Word 2016, and why don't you take a moment and do that as well. So as you start this program, you're going to see these templates that appear right away. There are ways to turn them off. We haven't had a chance to talk about that yet, but I don't really want to start with a blank document or a template this time. I'd like to go down here and click on Open Other Documents. So why don't you do that as well? Just pause the video for a second, go down there and click on Open Other Documents. When you do that, it should come up looking kind of like this, only you won't have the same things on the right-hand side. So do that for a moment. Click on Open Other Documents. Okay, assuming that you've done that, let's then click down here on Browse, the Browse button. So now I'm in here looking at all the different folders that are on my hard drive. And like good Microsoft and Adobe programs, it's looking in the Documents folder first. But I just told you a moment ago to put things on your desktop. So I'm going to scroll up here and go to the desktop. And then over at the right-hand side, you should be able to see the Word Sample Files like I have. I'm going to double-click to open that. And then on this basically alphabetized list, I'm going to scroll down and find a document named Practice Large Document. Let me make the window a little bit taller so I don't have to scroll quite so long. And I'm scrolling down and I'm looking for Practice Large Document. Once I find it, I'm double-clicking on it to open it. As you open yours, you may get a warning at the top of your screen that says you need to enable editing. And if you see that, well, I go ahead and click on that. There was just something going on the right side of my screen that won't be happening to you. And so take a moment and catch up with me. Again, maybe put the video on pause and go open Practice Large Document. And when you come back, it's going to look like this. All right, at first glance, it looks like Dan McAllister had me open a blank document. But it turns out if you'll scroll down, I'm rolling my scroll wheel right now, there is stuff on page 2 and page 3 and page 4. So our first subject of Module 2 is to talk about something called page breaks. And in this particular document, there is at least one page break in there already. In fact, there are a couple. And there's at least one place where we need a page break. When I say page break, what I'm talking about is a way to force Microsoft Word to start a new, fresh page with the whatever information is sitting at your flashing cursor, also called insertion point. So there is actually a page break here on the first page, and I'd like to show it to you. So this document looks like it is a blank document, but there's actually stuff going on in the background. And I'm going to reveal that by going up and clicking on this little object right up here. Its name is the Pilcrow, and when I click on it, I can see some information going on in the background. For example, several Pilcrows. Those represent places where someone has hit the Enter key when they set this up. And I've got a little thing down below there called a page break. And that's actually the subject of discussion for this first part of Module 2, removing page breaks, adding page breaks, and so forth. So I'm going to leave the Pilcrows turned on, and I'm going to scroll down a bit. You don't necessarily need to do this with me just yet. You can just watch for a moment. So I'm scrolling down a bit, and I see that towards the bottom of page 2, there is a nice new section that appears called Top 10 Favorites, and then they've got some books down here, and there's a table that starts on one page and continues on the next page, and then has a big blank section because of the page break that's right here. So we need to talk about inserting page breaks, and removing page breaks and what the heck is a page break and why would I bother using them. So I'm going to turn off the pilcrows at the moment. And you might as well scroll up and down in your document for a moment with the pilcrows turned on, and you would be able to see that there is a page break up there on page 1, and there's a page break down here at the bottom of page 3, and we're going to remove some of those, and we're going to add one of those. So take just a second and do that, and then turn off the pilcrows, and we should be ready to go. So I'll give you just a second to do that. Put the video on pause and catch up with me. All right, so I'm going to scroll down a bit more now to this place where I've got this thing about top 10 favorites. So I would like to move that down to the next page. And what I'll see a lot of people do is they'll click maybe just above it and start hitting the Enter key to move that thing down. Turns out this is not a great idea, and we'll see why. So just watch my screen for a moment. I'm going to hit the Enter key and moving it down. Enter, 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 until it goes to page 2. Or in this case, page 3, physically. So far that seems to have cured a problem, but it can actually make a problem. Because what if I need to go up here and add some things? If I add more lines, then what that'll do is kick this thing down even further. Or if I remove some lines, it will move that thing upward, and I will have kind of wasted my time hitting the Enter key a bunch of times to try to line that up. So really, I'm going to take that back. Actually, I should probably show you what's wrong with it. So I'm going to go back up here to the top. I'm going to expose the pilcrows, and I want to take out these Enter keys and that page break right there. So I'm selecting the Enter keys, the pilcrows, I tap the Delete key, they're gone. And now I'm going to tap the Delete key again to get rid of this page break. And now everything moves up to the top of that page. And as I scroll down, there's my Enter, 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 and it kind of looks okay down here. But if I decide, I need to add some things, like, anything, I'll just put in my name. And when I hit the Enter key, it then kicks this thing down a little bit more. And the more things I add up at the top, the more this thing pushes down. So that was not the best way to do that by hitting a bunch of Enter keys. Let's talk about a better way. So first thing I'm going to do is undo a bunch of those things. We haven't really talked about undo in Module 1. Let me mention it here. There is an undo button right up here. And as I hover over it, it tells me there's a keyboard shortcut for it, Control-Z. So a lot of people have used the undo button. It makes me fearless. I can just try stuff. But as I talk to people, most of them have never discovered this sneaky little list arrow just to the right of the undo button. I'm going to click on that. And what I'm seeing now is a list of what I did last, and what I did just before that, and just before that, and just before that. And in this case, what I would like to do is undo all of those. Now, I could either use Control-Z, 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 or click the undo, 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 or I can just roll down here. Notice these are in reverse order. So as I go down to the lowest one on the list, this will be the earliest one that I did. By the way, there's no way to undo that 7th one without undoing the 6 things that I did since then. But this is a really nice way to take back all the stuff I've done so far as I click on that thing right there. And now I've got all those pilcrows up at the beginning of page 1. And here's my table that starts on a funny looking page and doesn't continue nicely on the rest of the page. So we're now going to do this next thing together. Actually, you'll still watch me do it, and then I'll turn you loose to do it. So I'm going to go in right now and select those pilcrows. And I'm going to tap either the Delete or Backspace key. And then with my cursor flashing right here at the left end of the page break, I'm tapping the Delete key again. And now I got my Books and Beyond title is right at the top of page 1. And I'd like you to do that. So put the video on pause, turn on the pilcrows, go select the pilcrows on page 1 and delete them, and then with the cursor at the beginning of the line that says page break, tap the Delete key one more time and it should come up looking like this. So I'll give you just a second, put the video on pause, go do that, and then come on back and we'll do some stuff together. All right, let's turn off the pilcrows. There's a little trade-off there. It clutters up your screen when you've got them on screen like that. And it's time to scroll down here and let's start dealing with this top 10 favorites that I would like to move down to the next page. What I'm about to do now is I'm going to click above that, but I'm not going to hit enter, 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 enter. I'm going to insert what's called a page break. Now, you saw a moment ago what it looks like when you have the pilcrows turned on. It looks like a little line going across there with the words page break. So I'm going to insert that right now. To insert a page break, you can, for example, go up here and click on the Insert Command tab. And then right over here at the left-hand side, you can see a pull-down list called Pages. And when I click on that, one of my choices is Insert a Page Break right there. So I'm about to click on that. Again, I went to the Insert tab, I clicked the pull-down arrow under the Pages command, and now I'm clicking to Insert a Page Break. And it's going to happen right here where my cursor is. You can't see it once I go to the menu. So inserting a page break, and there, that took my top 10 favorites down to the next page. So it's your turn to do that. By the way, if I go back up here and turn on the pilcrows, that was under the Home tab and the pilcrows, you can see my page break appeared right there. So that's your turn. You've got the Books and Beyond is up at the top of page 1 because you removed the page break that was before it. Now scroll on down there and click just above the line that says Top 10 Favorites and Insert tab, Insert Pages, Page Break, and yours will look just as cool as mine does. So put the video on pause and insert that page break. All right, let us scroll down a little bit more. There's an awful lot of white space here below this table. And that's because just below the table there is a page break. And in fact, if I hover over the place where it is, they give me this little marker here. Kind of hard to tell what's going on there. How could I show myself that there's actually a page break there? Yes, I could turn on the pilcrows. So your job, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to get rid of the page break that's there. In order to see where it is, turn on the pilcrows. Click to put your flashing insertion point, also called the cursor, right at the beginning of the line that says page break, and remove it by tapping the delete key. I'll catch up with you in a moment. All right, time for me to catch up with you. I'm going to go to that Home tab. I'm turning on the pilcrows. Oh yeah, there's a page break right there. I'm going to click to put my cursor right at the beginning of that page break, and then I'm tapping the delete key. Page break is gone. The stuff that was starting on a new page has now moved up and is taking over all that white space that had been there. Although now, I've got a table down here kind of sitting there by itself. I've got the description of it up here. I've got the table down there, and then it continues. So some people don't mind the look of that, but other people it kind of bugs them. They got a description of this table, and then the table appears. So you've got one more thing you need to do. Let's put in a page break right there, right above Music Inventory Database, please. So you do it, and then I'll do it. Putting the video on pause, go do that, and then I'll catch up with you. All right, time for me to catch up. I'm inserting something under the pages. I'm inserting a page break. There we go. So now we've got the description of the table on the same page as the table, and everything finishes before the end of page 3. All right, very good, everybody. I'm hoping your screen looks like mine. Let's turn off the pilcrows. And I'd like to use the Save As command to make a copy of this document, only changing its name, so that maybe later on during one of the later modules, we can come back and reopen the document named Practice Large Document, and it will be exactly as it was when we first saw it. So please don't click the Save button. That would destroy the original Practice Large Document. We're going to use the Save As command instead. One of the ways to get to the Save As command is go to the File tab, welcome to the Backstage view, and then click Save As. If you happen to be with us in Module 1, I don't think I had you use it, but I did mention a keyboard shortcut for Save As is the F12 function key, which I'm about to tap right now. This is me tapping the F12 key. And oh look, I'm in the Save As window. And so I want to put it in that folder named Finished Documents that's out on my desktop. Now I can go over here and click on Desktop, and then over here on the right-hand side, Finished Word Documents. But in Module 1, I made a little shortcut to the Finished Word Documents by grabbing that folder, named Finished Word Documents, and dragged it over here into the Favorites area. Now you notice it doesn't necessarily alphabetize it in there, but there it is. And the advantage of that is, in this case, it's just one click quicker. But the reason that I wanted to introduce that in these lessons is that pretty much everybody I talk to in the business world they're working on their network and they have some shared drive. It's the H drive, it's the S drive, or whatever letter it's assigned to. And they spend a certain amount of their time going into that shared drive, into some folder, into some subfolder inside the folder that's on the shared drive that lives in the house that Jack built. You could save a whole bunch of that navigating by making a little shortcut to that folder. You just have to do what I did. Get to a place where you can see the folder on the H drive inside the other folder and simply drag it over here to the left. Now be careful not to drop it on a folder over there, otherwise you're just basically recreating the problem, putting a folder in a folder. So you have to be careful to drop it between the folders and get one of these horizontal lines. I'm not going to drop it there right now because I already did that. I already have one, but I would suggest that you do that. And then the next time you need to save something into that folder, you don't have to stop at the desktop. You can go right to that little shortcut in your favorites. In the meantime, let's go to the finished Word documents folder, and I would like to rename this. Instead of Practice Large Document, I'd like to name it Module 2 Large Document. So I'm dragging across the word Practice. I'm retyping right over top of that. Module 2 Large Document. I'm going to hit the Enter key or click Save. And so this thing says, hey, this is going to update to the newest file format. The reason it's saying that is the original document was created in Word 2003, which actually stores its documents in a different programming language than we use since 2007 version. So the version that was used in 2007 is the same file language that's used now in 2010 and 2013, and glory be 2016. So it's just telling me that I'm going to be upgraded to the newest file format. Woo-woo, free upgrade. And I'm going to hit the Enter key or click OK. And I should be able to see the new name up there, Module 2 Large Document. You may or may not see the 4-letter file name extension up there. Don't worry if you don't, but you shouldn't see the words compatibility mode up there when you're done. So go do what I did. Do not click the Save button. Instead, go to File and Save As, or what was my keyboard shortcut for Save As? Those of you who just chimed in, F12, extra 10 points for you. I don't know where you're going to trade in those points for any prizes, but file them away somehow. All right, so that's your job. Use Save As, name it Module 2 Large Document, and put it in our finished Word documents folder. Our next subject of discussion concerns the white space around the edges of the pages. Now, if I look up at the ruler at the top here, I can see roughly 1.25 inches on the left side, another 1.25 inches on the right side. It's a little bit tough to tell what's happening at the top and the bottom of the page. When I click in the page, I should also be able to see a ruler at the side. So by the gray space on the ruler, it looks like I've got 1 inch of margin at the top and 1 inch of margin at the bottom of the page. So 1.25 inches left and right, inch top and bottom. Maybe I would like to change that. Maybe, for example, I have one of those cool printers that'll print on both sides of the paper, and I would like to leave a little bit of extra space to put in staples or 3-ring binder holes or something like that on the inside of each page, and then as I print on the back side of the page, I still want the 3-ring binder holders on the inside of the page. And what that means is it's on the left side of the front of the page and the right side of the back of the page. And I shouldn't still be excited all these years later about having a printer that prints both sides of the page, but I love mine. I do a lot of printing, and not having to print one side of the page all the time or put in half the pages and then flip them over and print the other half is what I used to have to do. Man, I'm a happy camper now with a 2-sided printer. So let's talk about setting up the white space, the margins, for a 2-sided printer here for a moment. So to get to the margins, I'm going to go up to the Layout command tab to produce the layout ribbon, and then over here at the left-hand side is a button about margins. So this is talking about the white space at the side and top and bottom of a page. Now, why do they do that? Why do they bother putting white space around the edges? Well, it turns out that if you have really long lines that go very near the edges of the page, it's easier for your eyes to get lost reading across those longer lines. And hardly anybody has a printer that will print right to the edge of the page anyway, so you're going to have some white space in there somehow. You might as well learn to control what that does. So I'm going to go up here and click the pull-down arrow for the margins, and you will see that there are several presets. So we've got the 1/2 inch at the top, bottom, and left and right. We have something called moderate. We have something called wide. Mirrored, we're going to talk about in a minute. You'll notice one of them has kind of a blue box down here. It is the 2003 default, and you may remember that when we saw that thing about updating the file format, I had mentioned that this did come from a 2003 file, so that's why it has an inch at the top and the bottom and an inch and a quarter on left and right. But if I want to change those, then I just need to move a little bit farther down here. So there's a scrollable list up here, and then down way at the bottom there's one that says Custom Margins. I'm going to click on that, and that opens up this dialog window. You can see its title says Page Setup, and among other things, it's got information about the margins, top, bottom, left and right, and etc. So why don't you join me in that window for just a moment? That is, put the video on pause, and to be able to see that layout window for the margins, you're going to go up here and click on the Layout Command tab, which produces the layout ribbon, and then over here at the left side, click the pull-down arrow for the margins, and then click on Custom Margins, and your screen should look like mine. So put the video on pause for just a moment, and catch up with me into the Page Setup window to talk about margins. So you can see there aren't just four boxes here, top, bottom, left, and right. There's also something called gutter and gutter position. Very often the gutter is used to temporarily increase margins for maybe 3-ring binders. Or you can just increase the left margin for those things as long as you're just going to be printing on one side of the page. But if I'm going to be printing on both sides of the page, it's going to take a little trick. It won't be called the left side, and you'll see that here in a moment. So I'm noticing down here towards the bottom of this window, there's a little list box that says Apply to Whole Document. Right now, that's what I want to do, apply to the whole document with whatever I set up. And then I've also got a thing here that says Multiple Pages. And as I click on that pull-down arrow, I can say, well, I'm going to print 2 pages on each sheet and then fold it like a booklet. In fact, there's a slightly different thing called book fold. And then I would like to introduce this idea of mirrored margins. Now, right now it says you got a left margin and a right margin. Watch what happens if I say mirror margins. Here I see a little sample of 2 pages where I'm going to be printing on both sides of the page. And now you notice it doesn't say left and right. It says inside and outside. So if, for example, I set these up to be an inch on the top and the bottom, and the inside and the outside, then this is a little sample of what it's going to look like. The white space on the inside and outside edges are the same. Now, what about my 3-ring binder? Well, I could add a gutter here and put the gutter, notice it says left, it doesn't really say inside. Or the way I'll usually do it is I'll just increase the inside margin a little bit. So I'm going to change my inside margin from 1 inch. I'm going to click and I'm going to make it maybe 1.25 inches on the inside. And then if I click on some other box, it's kind of subtle, but notice now the inside margin in the sample box is ever so slightly wider than the outside margin in the sample box here. So the front page would be on this side. This would be a page 1, and then a page 2 and 3, 4, and 5. So my even numbered pages would be on the left, my odd numbered pages would be on the right. My cover page would be one of the right side pages. So that's the idea of mirrored margins. And so maybe I want to make the top margin a little bigger or a little smaller. This is a box where you can do that. Bottom margin as well. All I've done is increase the inside margin and changed it to mirrored margins. I did them in the other direction there, actually. I did the mirrored margins first. So instead of saying left and right, it now says inside and outside. And change that inside margin to 1.25 inches. And when you click on OK, you will see as you scroll up and down here, here's my odd numbered page. And then my even numbered page, if I can zoom out a little bit here, you can see they are not starting at the same indentation. That's because my odd numbered pages have the 1.25 inches. My even numbered pages have the inch margin. So you can actually see that in action right now. So I'd like you to put the video on pause and go catch up with me. Again, I went to the margins pull-down arrow, went to custom margins, changed them from normal to mirrored margins, and increased the inside margin to 1.25 inches, please. All right, everyone, let's take just a moment and save that document that we've been working on. I don't need to change its name again. I want to keep it named Module 2 Large Document. And a quick way to do that is to just go up and click on this little icon right here. By the way, years ago in a class, this was quite a few years ago now, I had a lady ask me in the middle of a class, "Hey Dan, what's that little TV set up in the corner?" And I had no idea what she was talking about. I went and looked over her shoulder, and she was pointing at this thing, this little floppy disk icon here. I'm not sure how many of you are willing to admit that you saw floppy disks somewhere in your computer studies. Some of you may even have seen the wobbly floppy disks along the way. I have to count myself in that class, and now I'm feeling really old and depressed. So I'm moving on. Let's go up and click on that little TV set. That's actually what we just called it the rest of the semester. We'd say, everybody go up and click the little TV set, make sure you've saved the latest and greatest version of your document, and everybody knew what I was talking about then. So I'm going to go click the little TV set. It doesn't ask me what to name it or where to put it, it just updates it. All right, our next subject of discussion, I would like to use a separate practice file here. So let us go to File and Open, or those of you who like keyboard shortcuts, the keyboard shortcut for opening a file is Control and the letter O. So I'm actually going to do that right now. I'm going to hold Control and tap the letter O, not the number 0, the letter O, and here I am now opening a file. So maybe you'd like to try that, Control and O, to get yourself where I am. Put the video on pause and do that for just a second. All right, now we're going to slide down and click on the Browse button. So mine remembers that the last place I'd been working was the finished Word documents folder. What I need is the Word work files folder. So I got to scroll up just a little bit over here on the left side, go to my Word sample files folder. And then I'm going to scroll down and find a document named Section Breaks for Module 2. I'm going to give that a quick double click. When it opens up on your screen, you may see a thing about needing to enable editing. If you do see that, go ahead and click on Enable Editing, and then your screen should pop up looking like this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit by holding the Control key and rolling my scroll wheel on my mouse. All right, so put the video on pause, take just a second and catch up to me. Open the file named Section Breaks, please, and then come on back. So maybe I would like to take part of my document and make it look like 2 columns wide. Now, if I just scroll down a little bit and click somewhere in the document and go start looking for columns, I'll find something about columns under the Layout tab here. So I'm going to go click on that Layout tab. And then you should notice that there is a button over here about columns. And when I click on the pull-down arrow under columns, I get to choose how many columns. Now, by default, the columns are going to be equally spaced with just a little bit of white space between them, a little margin gutter, they call it. I can offset them so that I have a skinnier column on the left, or a skinnier column on the right, or 3 columns. If I went down here to more columns, I could actually choose how many columns I want. But when I started this discussion, I said I wanted 2 columns. I'm about to make a little mistake here. I'm going to go click on 2 columns. Right, there's my little mistake. All of a sudden it looks like a newspaper. I got what's sometimes referred to as newspaper-style columns. And if that's what I wanted, okay, that's great. But things can get a little bit strange there because I've got to read all the way to the bottom of that first column and then move my eyeballs up and read all the way to the bottom of that second column, and then I'm going to the next page. That's fine if that's what I'm trying to do, but in my case, that's not what I was trying to do. I only wanted to make part of the document appear as 2 columns. Thank goodness for undo. So I'm going to go up here and click on the undo button, or I could use Control-Z, and there I'm back to 1 column. That's better. So you don't actually have to go do that. You saw what was bad about it. As you can imagine, maybe what I should have done first is select the text that I wanted to put into 2 columns. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to do that. I see a thing here says, to change the overall look of your document. And then the next paragraph is about when you create pictures, charts, or diagrams. So I'm going to put those as 2 columns side by side instead of 2 paragraphs above and below each other, which is what's going on right now. So first thing I'm going to do is select what text I want to put into 2 columns. And then I'm going to go up and click on my columns button, and I'm going to make 2 columns, and notice it only affects that much of my text. So I would like you to do what you just saw me do. Scroll down to the part that says, let me undo that. Scroll down to the part that says, to change the overall look of your document. Looks like that's about the 1, 2, 3, 4th big paragraph. and select that paragraph and the one next to it. And then you're going up here to your Layout tab, clicking on the pull-down arrow and make it 2 columns, and notice it only affects that much of your text. So pause the video, go do that. Now I'd like to show you behind the curtain here. Go turn on the Pilcrows. You're going to watch me do it first. Go into the Home tab, turning on the Pilcrows. Oh look, there's a section break right there, and a section break right there. Now a section break is different than a page break. Think of your document as a big building, and by putting in section breaks, you put in some interior walls. So that's what we just did, and that happened here in the background because of the way that Word is set up. When you select text and put it into columns, it puts a section break above and a section break below. I've just adjusted my screen a little bit so that you could see my status bar down here. Right now, as part of my status bar, it tells me what section I'm in, what page I'm working on, how many total pages I have, how many words are in here. Now, sometimes when you first look down here in the status bar, you might not see the section number, and that's something that can be turned on and off by right-clicking in this area called the status bar. So I'm pointing in the status bar, I'm clicking my right mouse button, and I get a pop-up list of things that I would be able to see down in my status bar if I checkmark them. So if you don't see one for the section down here, then checkmark the one called section, and then you could tap the escape key to step out of that list, and you should be able to see what section you're in. So take just a moment and do that. Put the video on pause, go down and right-click on the status bar, and turn on the section indicator, it's called. All right, good work. So now we can see what section we're in. When I click above that section break, it says I'm in section 1. When I click in the 2 paragraphs, it says I'm in section 2. And when I click below those 2 paragraphs after that section break, it says I am now in section 3. So you should be able to check that out. Take just a second and do that. Check out section 1, section 2, section 3. You just saw how to do it. Now I'm not so crazy about what's happening right down at the bottom of my first column. It's a little bit tough to tell where that column ends and the next one begins. I can tell easily because I see the Pilcrows. But what I'd like to do is take that next paragraph. I'm going to click just to put my flashing insertion point there. Hit the Enter key to leave just a little bit of a line, a little bit of space in there. So I'd recommend that you do that. Click just at the beginning of the following paragraph, tap the Enter key, kick that thing down, puts in another Pilcrow, and then I'm hiding the Pilcrows right now. So as I begin to scroll down, things are looking fairly nice here. I do have a paragraph that starts on one page and finishes on another, but the longer document I'm working on, why the more often that happens, I'm not going to worry too much about that. So far, the section breaks that we put in were just for a small piece of text, not a whole page. But sometimes I do want to insert not only a page break, but a section break to lead to something that we're eventually going to talk about when we get to mentioning headers and footers. Not headings. Headings are font styles. Headers is something else, and we're going to be talking about that pretty darn soon here. So I would like to get to the top of my document. There is a nice keyboard shortcut to do that. Maybe you know it already, or maybe you saw us use it in Module 1. Think about what it is. Wait for it. Yeah, it's Control and Home. If you're not familiar with this, if I click in the middle of a line and I just tap the Home key on the right side of my keyboard, it moves my cursor to the beginning of that line. But if I want to get to the whole beginning of the entire document, I can hold Control and tap the Home key, which is what I'm about to do right now, and what I would like you to do is hold Control and tap the Home key. And now you can see a label up here that says Chapter 1. While we're here, why don't we do a little bit of work with those margins? So I'm heading up to the Layout tab, I'm clicking on the Margins pull-down arrow. I'm going to go down here to Custom Margins. So we'll leave the top and the bottom at 1 inch. Let's change it from normal pages to mirrored margins. We're going to say top and bottom is 1 inch. Inside, doesn't say left anymore, it says inside. We're going to make that 1 1/4 inches. Little extra room there for our binders, 3-ring binders, spiral binders. And on the outside, let's make it 3/4 of an inch. That is 0.75 of an inch on the outside. And then notice down at the bottom here, it says this would apply to only this section. Now we've actually got more than one section here because of the columns that we did. So let's say apply to the entire document. And then choosing OK. And I can see the extra space at the left side of one page and then at the right side of the next page, and so forth. So take just a moment and do that if you would. That was margins, custom margins. Start out with mirrored margins, 1 1/4 on the inside, 3/4 inch on the outside. And don't apply it just to this section. Make sure you apply it to the entire document. Now I'm using Control on the scroll wheel to zoom out until I can see more than one page here. In fact, let me zoom to what we might call 2 up. And notice that right now it looks like the inside margin is the skinny one and the outsides are the wider one. But let me just talk about how this thing is actually going to print. So let me go to a PowerPoint slide here, where I have a little picture of the Word icon. Now, this is supposed to simulate a document, so here's the front page. So this would be page 1 here. And then as we flip this thing open, this would be my page 2, and then this one is going to be my page 3. So what we were seeing on screen a moment ago when we had it zoomed out isn't quite what's going to be happening. And maybe a way to see that, let me just go back to my Word document here, would be to zoom out just a little bit more so that I could see 3 up. So here's going to be the opening page, and then here is the inside pages. And so this way you can see that right in here we're going to have the wider margins when we put in our binder on the inside of those pages 2 and 3. So I'm going to zoom in. Again, I'm just using Control on the scroll wheel to do that. So if I show the pilcrows, let me just remind you that when we set up these columns, it automatically put in what's called a continuous section break at the beginning of the 2 columns, and another section break continuous at the bottom of that. So those appeared just automatically, and this is bugging me a little bit. I'm going to click down here and tap the Enter key to move that down just a little bit. You can do that if you want. It's not terribly important. What I'd like to do now is break this document down into its multiple chapters by turning each chapter into a section. So here we have a section that's less than 1 page. What we're about to create are some sections that are more than 1 page. I'm going to turn off the pilcrows just because they're not terribly important for this part. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to find where it says Chapter 2. There it is, Chapter 2 Pictures. I'm going to click to put my cursor right there. And then I would like to insert a special kind of section break. This is going to start a new section and it's going to start a new page. We've seen how to insert a page break. One of the ways to do that was here under Insert and Pages and Page Break. Or as I hover, it says Control and Return, Control and the Enter key. That would create a new page, but it wouldn't create a new section. So for this, we're going to switch instead to the Layout tab, and then you'll see a choice in here about breaks. And when I click on that, you'll notice the breaks are broken down into 2 parts here, page breaks versus section breaks. And there's actually one of them that's both. This guy right here, Next Page, says insert a section break and start a new section on the next page. So that's what I'm going to do right here. Next page break. Boom, there it is, starting a next page. And if I turn on the pilcrows again, Home tab, pilcrows, I can see it's not just a page break, it is a section break called Next Page. So that's your job right now. Put our video on pause, scroll down and find that spot where it says Chapter 2. Click to put your insertion point right there. Go to the Layout tab, insert a break that is a next page break. That'll start a new section and a new page. Put our video on pause, go join me. Alright, next thing I'd like to do is find where it says Chapter 3. Now I can scroll down and eyeball it, but there is actually a find command that's available here. So I'm going to go up to the Home tab. Way over here, I've got a choice to find something. When I click on that, it opens up my left side navigation pane, and then I can tell it what I'm looking for. I would like to look for the specific words Chapter 3. And it finds where Chapter 3 is. And now that I've found it, I can close the little searching window, click there. I'm going to insert one more of those. Let's see, where was that? What tab was it under? Yep, it was under Layout. We're going for breaks. and next page break. Okay, so your job is to do that now. You're going to do the find command, find chapter 3, insert one of those next page breaks. Then you're going to go find chapter 4, do the same thing, chapter 5, do the same thing. When we come back, I will have that done already, and so will you, because you did it as you put it on pause here. So put it on pause, go find 3, 4, and 5, and make them new next page breaks. And the next thing we're going to talk about is doing stuff up here in the top margin called adding page headers. So that will be the subject of our next lesson. In our last session, we set up the margins, mirrored margins, and we inserted some next page breaks, so we have several different sections. Right now, as I look down at the bottom of my screen, I can say that I am now in section number 7. So what I want to talk about next is this header area right up here. Anything you put in the header area will appear on all of the pages at first, although we can adjust that so that I could have a different header in the different sections. And that's what we're going for the next 15 minutes or so. So here we go. So in order to insert a header, we would go to the Insert tab right up here. That's where I'm headed, and clicking on the Insert tab. And one of my choices here is to insert a header. And when I click on the little pull-down arrow, here comes a list of headers that are pre-created and built into every copy of Word. And I see one here called Banded, and when I click on that, here is something called the Banded header. And as I scroll up and down, you'll see that that's happening on every single page. And if I look closely, it's got a little place where I could click and type in the document title, and that way that would appear on every single page of every single section. But maybe I would like to have different things in each of those sections. Maybe at the top of all the pages of Chapter 1, I want it to say Chapter 1. At the top of every page that's in Chapter 2, I want it to say Chapter 2. So that's what we're going to do. One of the ways I can get rid of this one would be to go up here to the header tools. By the way, notice I am now in a whole ribbon of stuff I can do in the header. And I'm going to click on header. And you'll notice way down at the bottom there's a choice about remove header. On the other hand, if I know what I want to put there instead of what's here, I don't actually have to remove it before I choose the other thing that I want to have happen there. So watch my screen. Here's the other thing I want to have happen there. So I'm going to go up here to header again. And I notice a choice that says blank. Now it turns out that's different than remove header. So I'm going to click on blank, and you'll see what that does is give me a little placeholder where I can type stuff. And again, right now that's happening on every single page. And whatever I type there would happen on every darn page. So I'm going to scroll way up to the top here. I could use Control Home, of course. And I'm going to click where it says type here. Now, right now you can see it says Chapter 1, the Insert tab, and as I scroll down to the next page, that one doesn't say anything about Chapter 1. If I put Chapter 1 up here in the header, then it will say that so far on every single page, and then we'll talk about how could I change it between the different sections. So that's where I'm headed right now. I'm going to double-click down here in the text to step temporarily out of the header section. I'm going to go select that Chapter 1, the Insert tab, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to cut it. So one of the ways to do that, I can right-click on it, and I'm going to cut it. And then I'm going to go click where it says type here. In fact, I have to double-click, and that's where I'm going to paste what I just cut. And I'm going to say, all right, paste that in here. And there it is. Now, I've got a couple of extra enter keys down here. I'm going to just hit the delete key to get rid of one of them, leave a little bit of space. But now as I scroll down, you'll notice every single page says Chapter 1. Even the pages that are actually Chapter 2 stuff. Here's Chapter 2 pictures down here, but it says Chapter 1 up there in the header. We're going to take care of that right now. But before we do that, I would like you can skip the part where we inserted the one called Banded, and just go up there and click in the header, and click on header and make it a blank one. That'll give you the typing section. And then you're going to do what I did. We double-clicked in the document to step out of the header. We selected the words Chapter 1, the Insert tab. We cut them. We double-clicked on the little placeholder up here, and we pasted them. So join me with that part, and then we're going to talk about how can I make the sections have different headers and footers from each other. So join me in that part thus far. Now comes the part where we have different headers for each section. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to go find that area where it says Chapter 2. Yes, I could do a find command for that. So here's my Chapter 2 part. Notice right now up here it says Chapter 1. This is the thing we want to take care of right now. And there is one specific, very important step in here, and I'll stress it when we get there. So I'm going to select Chapter 2 Pictures. I'm going to cut it. Right now I'm using Control X. And then I'm going to go up and click in the header part. I probably have to double click to get into the header part. And before I do any pasting, there is something really important to talk about. Notice right over here on this side, it says that this header is the same as the previous header. I don't want that to be true. I want this header to be different from the previous header. And in order to change that, we're going to go right up here where it says Link to Previous, and we're going to click to turn that off. This is a really important part here. Another thing to think about, do this from top of the document to the bottom of the document. Makes it way easier. If you try to work from the bottom to the top, things get really wonky on you. All right, so I'm going to click on Link to Previous to tell it I don't want it linked to previous. Notice the little marker that says same as previous is different. And now I'm going to drag across the Chapter 1 stuff, and I'm going to paste in the Chapter 2 stuff. And if I've done that right, if I've been very careful not to link to previous, I should be able to scroll up here and see Chapter 1 in the section above there, and Chapter 2 in the section below there, and right now it says Chapter 2 on every page till the end. We'll do something about that in a moment. So I need you to catch up with me. Again, just to reiterate what I did. I scrolled down, I selected the words Chapter 2 Pictures. I cut them. I went up into the header section, I double-clicked on the placeholder, but before I typed anything, I made sure to go over here and notice that it said same as previous, and the way that we got around that was, we went up here to the top and we unselected Link to Previous. Then we pasted in the Chapter 2, and then you should be able to scroll up and see Chapter 1 above and Chapter 2 below, and things will be really cool at that point. So put that video on pause, catch up to me. Now this would be a really good time to go up and save your document. Go click that little TV set. All right, I'm going to guide you through one more of those, and then you're going to have to do it a couple more times after that. So just to reiterate, while we're doing it, I would like to use the Find command. I'm going to go to my Home tab and click on Find. By the way, as I hover over Find, I don't know that you'll be able to read. If I zoom in, you won't be able to see it. Control and F is a keyboard shortcut for Find. So I'm going to do that right now. Control F opens up my navigation pane, and this time I want to have it find Chapter 3. And in fact, it's in there from a similar search that I did before. And here I am now at the part about Chapter 3 themes. So that's the thing that I'm eventually going to copy and paste up here, where it currently says Chapter 2 all the way to the end of the document. All right, so see if you can remember the steps. We need to cut, but before we paste, we have to make sure we are not linking to previous. So maybe you can do that right now. Maybe you can remember how to do the steps, but I'd recommend watch me one more time. So I'm selecting the text, I'm cutting it through Control X, for example. I'm going to go up and double-click in the header on the area that I want to paste, but before I paste, I notice it says same as previous. That's my enemy right now. I need to not link to previous, select this text, and then paste. I'm using Control V. And so now if I scroll down, I should see Chapter 3's all the way to the end. And as I move up, I ought to be able to see Chapter 2's up here. And Chapter 1's way up here. Chapter 1's. Okay, so that is your job right now. You're going to do that for Chapter 3. And then I'm not going to come back and show you how to do it again. You have to go find Chapter 4 and do that. Chapter 5 and do that. Remember, the most important part of that is not to link to previous. So you're going to go do that for Chapters 3, 4, and 5 now. For my next trick, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pull a rabbit out of my sleeve. No, that's not what I'm going to do. What I want to talk about now is footers. So for our headers, I wanted a different thing at the top of each of my different chapters. For my footer, what I want it to show is in the middle of the footer, I want to see the date, and at the right side of the footer, I would like to see the page numbers. And I want that to happen just all the way through the document. I'm not going to have to worry about same as previous. Although I could There are times when people would like to have each chapter start over with page 1, but in my case, I am not worried about that. So we're going to work in the footer section, and we're going to see how we could create a footer that we could use over and over again in more than one document. So I can start in any footer down here. Doesn't matter what page I'm on, doesn't matter what section I'm on, as long as I'm going to use same as previous. Maybe just to sort of make sense here, I'm going to go to the top of the document. I don't have to, but I'm going to. So I'm double-clicking out of the footer. I'm going to use my Control-Home keyboard shortcut to get up to the top of that thing, where it nicely says Chapter 1. I'm digging on that. Now, I would like to insert a footer. And when I say insert a footer, I'm giving you a big clue. It's under the Insert tab, the same way header was. So I'm clicking on Insert. I'm going to go over here to Insert a footer. And in this case, I would like to have 3 placeholders down here. So instead of blank, I'm going to go with blank 3 columns. And it drops that down in my footer, 3 separate placeholders. Now, I either have to type something in there or remove them. Otherwise, I will actually see the words type here, and that would be an awful thing. So for the first little placeholder, I'm going to click and tap the delete key. And then I'm going to go to the second little placeholder and click. And now I've got a whole ribbon up here of stuff I can do in my header and footer, like insert the date and time. So I'm going to click on that right now, inserting the date and time. It says, how would you like the date and time to look? I'm going to go with the little short date here. And notice a checkbox that says update automatically. So that means every time I open this document, it will show that day's date down there at the bottom. And that can be handy if I occasionally come and update this file, and when I print it out, it'll have the date of the printout, and that way maybe I can look at 2 different printouts and figure out which one was the most recent, which one had the latest changes in it. On the other hand, if I would like it to show the date at which I last edited it, and not have it update automatically every time I open it, then I would uncheck that. But in my case, I would like it to update automatically so that every time they open the document, it shows that day's date in it. So I will leave that check marked and I'll choose OK. So there is today's date. And then the other thing I said I want to put it in there was the page number. So I'm going to click where it says type here over at the right-hand side. And I've got a thing up here about page numbers. Now, when I click on that, I've got all kinds of choices. Top of the page, bottom of the page, page margins, blah, blah, blah. I have, through my experience, discovered the best way to do that is select the place where you want the page number to be, and then go with this bad boy right here, current position. That way I'm not going to get any surprises about having it appear someplace that I wasn't quite sure of. So, hovering over a current position, I see a little pull-down list of page numbers, where I could have it just the page number or the word page and the page number. If I scroll down just a little bit, there is one of them down here. By the way, there's only one of them here that shows page X of Y. So that'll show me what page I'm on and the total number of pages, and that's the one I like. I'm going to click on that and drop it right in there. So it says I'm looking at page 1 of a total of 15 pages. And if I scroll down, it says that on every single page. By the way, just a little keyboard shortcut. If I'm in the header or footer section and I tap the down arrow key, it goes to the next header or footer section. Down arrow again goes to the next header or footer section. And so this way I can see it's going to have today's date and the page number on every single page, and it's just fine with me if it's same as previous. So now it's your turn. Let me just remind you what we did. First, we didn't have a header or footer. Well, we had a header, but we didn't have a footer. So in this case, we went to Insert. We wanted to insert a footer this time. We chose the blank 3 columns. Then we deleted the leftmost placeholder. We put today's date in the center placeholder. And we put the page X of Y in the right side placeholder. Your turn to go do that. Come join me. In our previous lesson, we just saw how to insert a footer, and I promised that we would have a way to save that for future use. It's time to talk about how to do that. So when I'm in a footer, one of the ways to get there, just double-click in the footer area. Now I'm in the header and footer design ribbon. When I click on the pull-down arrow for footer, you'll notice there is a choice down here about save selection to the footer gallery. Also notice that it's grayed out. Any theories as to why save selection to footer gallery would be grayed out? What does it usually mean when something's grayed out on a menu? it means it's unavailable, but it also usually means that if I did something else first, then that would become available. Save selection to the footer gallery. I have not made a selection. That's why it's grayed out. So I'm going to go make a selection. I'm going to double click in the footer section, and maybe I'll move out here into the left margin so I get my up pointing right arrow. A single click selects that whole line. Now that I have a selection, I can go to the footer pull down arrow, and I can say, oh look, save selection to footer gallery. Opens up this lovely dialog window. So it says for the name, it's just going to put in the things that I've typed in there. And that's going to look kind of weird as the name of a footer. So I'm going to replace that name with, let's see, what's in it? Date and page number. That would be the name of my personal footer that I've created. And it's got a category here called General. And you wouldn't know it now because you just have never seen it. My experience tells me if I leave that as the category called General, then my saved footer is going to be down at the bottom of the list of footers that are available. So I have discovered through a little bit of practice that if I switch that from general to something called built-in, yes, I understand it wasn't really just built-in, but we're going to make that choice, built-in. And then I got one more secret. If I choose built-in, it'll put it in a group of choices near the top of the list of footers. And then I got one more secret here. If I go up and click at the beginning of the name and start it with a space bar, alphabetically spaces come before A's and B's and C's. So because of the built-in, it'll be in a group at the top of the list, and because of the space bar, boy, it'll be almost at the very top of the list. The only two that will be above it were the ones called blank and blank 3 columns. So again, reiterating here, I selected the text, I went to footer, I chose save selection to footer gallery, opened up this dialog window. We're naming it spacebar date and page number. Going to put the category as built-in, and then I'm clicking on OK. So what did that achieve? Well, the next time I need to insert a footer, I go up here to footer, and there's mine, date and page number. The only two above it are the blank and the blank 3 columns. Everything else that used to be down there is still below there, but mine is near the top. So it's your turn to do that. You select it, turn it into a footer, do the naming thing where you start it with a space, and put it in the built-in category. Your turn to do that. Hope you're having some geeky fun along the way by now. The next subject on our agenda is to put a nice cover page on this report. And there are some really nice pre-created cover pages that are available. Now, you don't have to be sitting on page 1 to see this happen, but I usually like to. So I'm going to double-click out of the footer section so that I'm talking in the main text area now, and I'm going to use my old friend by now, Control-Home, to go to the top of that document. So here's what my first page looks like right now. And what I would like to do now is insert one of the pre-created cover pages. And again, insert the cover page. That means it's found under the Insert ribbon here. So I'm going to go up and click on the Insert tab. And then on the Insert ribbon, there's a choice over here about Pages. And when I click on the little pull-down arrow for that, I can see Cover Page, Blank Page, and my old friend Page Break. So this time I'm going with Cover Page. And then here are several that are available right out of the box. Now you may remember there was a header called Banded. Now there's actually a cover page called Banded. If I scroll down just a little bit, I kind of like this one that says Filigree. I used to work in a jewelry store. A filigree ring has little cutouts in it, in the band itself, so you can see through the ring to your finger. And they'll have all kinds of decorations and stuff on like that on a filigree ring. So I'm going to choose the filigree cover page. And there it is. It drops it right in there. Now, it always puts that at the beginning of the document, no matter what page I was sitting on when I did it. And you can't have more than one cover page. Well, actually, you can if you go through a bunch of finagling, copying, and pasting, but there's no real use for having more than one cover page. Now, you notice on the cover page, it's got a place for the document title and a place for a document subtitle. And if you don't either erase or type something in those places, then when you print the thing out, it'll say those words, document title, document subtitle. So I can see up in the title bar, the name of the document is Section Breaks Mod 2 blah blah blah. That doesn't mean that's what the document title has to say. Maybe this document is about how to use Microsoft Word for various methods. Now I'm noticing up at the top of the screen, the name of the file is section breaks. But maybe what the document is about is using Word 2016. So I'm going to click in the document title, and I'm going to type that in as the title for this document, using Word 2016. Now you can see in this case it's set up to use all capital letters. You can change that if you want, but looks kind of cool. And then for the document subtitle, if I've got one, I could put it in there like my byline, have my name in there. Or if I don't want to put anything there, I just tap the delete key and get rid of it. And when I click away, let's see. So if I do a print preview right now, you'll see it'll actually have that document subtitle thing there. So what I'm going to do is try to totally delete it, tapping the delete key, and then maybe even click on the subtitle little name there, and delete that one more time. And then when I click away, I'm left with just a little paragraph mark, and that's not going to print. And again, as I go to File and Print, so I can see a print preview, I can see the words that I put in there, and I don't see any subtitle. So getting rid of that subtitle was a little bit difficult. I kind of had to delete it twice. All right, so that's your job now. You're going to insert a cover page. And if you want to try a different one than filigree, definitely feel free to do that. Just make sure that every one of the placeholders either is deleted or has something in it. So go insert a cover page, everybody. If you haven't done it recently, this would be a good time to go and save all of your open documents. And then let us start a brand new document. Now, I mentioned this next thing in Module 1, but maybe not everybody has actually checked out Module 1, so let me just mention it here. I want to start a new document. One of the ways to do that is to go up to my File tab. And in here in the Backstage view, I can say I would like to make a new document, and then it offers me a whole bunch of really cool ways to make new documents for certificates and calendars and just all kinds of stuff that's in there. It's taken it a second to catch up to me. And in there I can say, oh, what I really wanted was a blank document. But if I know that I want a blank document, then I can actually do that a faster way through a keyboard shortcut, the keyboard shortcut being Control and the letter N as in new. Not Control and the End key. That would take me to the end of my document. So I want Control and the letter N for a new document, and you just take a second and catch up with me, and I'm probably zoomed in a little bit more than I want to be. So Control N to make a new document. Go do that on your screen right now. All right, now I'm going to do some typing, and as I'm typing, I'm going to be making mistakes. And some of these it will catch automatically, and some of them I'll have to do a little bit of extra work to get it to catch the mistakes. But the reason it will catch some of them automatically is because of what I'm about to show you now. You don't have to do this on your screen, you're just going to watch. So I'm up here going to File, and then in the Backstage view, I'm going to click on Options right down here in the corner. And when I choose something on the left-hand side, it changes things on the right. And I want to talk about proofreading, also called proofing. So on the left side, I'm going to click on Proofing. Then I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, and I want to talk about these things right in here. So automatically, Word 2016 is set up to check your spelling as you're typing, mark grammar errors as you're typing, find frequently confused words and mark them somehow, and check the grammar and the spelling at the same time. So that's why some of the things you're going to see are going to happen right here. I'm clicking on OK. So you've just peeked behind the curtain. Don't ignore the man behind the curtain. Sometimes you need to peek behind the curtain. Okay, so you're going to see me typing some stuff, and then I'll leave it on screen, and you can repeat what I did here. First one is going to be kind of a simple one, like my car are green. And right now it doesn't seem to have caught the word R, but as soon as I hit the Enter key, sometimes that's enough to get it to trigger catching the thing that was wrong. All right, we'll talk about what to do that in just a moment. I'm going to keep typing now. Let this company go about, but I'm going to misspell about, A-B-U-O-T, about its business. And I want you to watch a special thing that's going to happen right here. I'm going to slightly mistype business, B-U-S-I-N-E-E-S, when it really should be E-S-S. And when I hit the period, did you see it fix it? I typed EES, it typed ESS. Again, we'll talk about why that happens in just a moment. All right, I'm going to hit the Enter key. By the way, that was called autocorrect. Oh, now it finds something about the its that it doesn't like. So while you're typing, it will catch some things. Other things, it waits until you hit the Enter key or a space bar to catch problems. And some words it just fixes right away, and you might even not notice that it fixed it. My first job was at McDonald's. So when you worked at McDonald's, they would show you these training films on how to do things. And one of my favorites was the training film about building Big Macs, because it had some just classical subjects in it. So one of the things that they would say in this video, I'll never forget it, you're working on a Big Mac. And so you've got a toaster that has the 3-section bun for the Big Mac. So it's got the bottom, it's got the middle, and then it's got the McCrown. Yes, that's what they called it. So one of the steps in the video for making a Big Mac was put the McCrowns on the McBuns. That was my favorite phrase in the whole training video. Put the McCrowns on the McBuns. And then you send them to the front because that's the last step. So put the McCrowns on the McBuns. When I hit the Enter key, it seems to catch something about the McBuns. So I'm going to leave this on screen. I would like you to go to your window and type things the way I did. And remember, when you type in business, try to type an EES. And as soon as you type a period and hit the Enter key, it might not even wait that long. It might just fix it while you're typing it. So again, I'm going to leave this on screen. You're going to catch up with me, put the video on pause, and do that stuff. All right, welcome back. By the way, I'm from the Detroit area originally. And right across the Detroit River is Windsor, Ontario. So we would do a lot of business and talk to people from Canada. And so this would be kind of the way that it would sound. Let's let this company go about their business. But they would not spell it this way. More information than you need to know about me. So let's see what we can do about these things that it has found. I'm going to go up here and point at the R green, and I'm going to right-click on it. And in the pop-up stuff that appears, I've got the little mini formatting toolbar. And then down here at the bottom, I've got stuff down here about spelling and grammar. And so it's suggesting that I should use the word is, and if I click on it, it'll replace it. But maybe I'd like to figure out a little bit more information about what's wrong with that word. I'm going to slide down here and click on grammar. And that opens up a little window pane over at the left side that says, all right, here's the word that's wrong, here's what we're suggesting. And if I click on change, it'll just fix it. Or if I want to read more about it, I've got a little arrow down here that I can click on and scroll down a little bit, and it's telling me what's wrong with it. The subject and the verb should agree in numbers. They should be singular, or they should be both singular, or they should be both plural. And then it offers me some suggestions that are not about my specific word here, but here's what we're talking about, here's some examples. All right, so in this case, I do want to replace it with is. I can just click on change right here, and it does that, and it hides that little mini panel that popped up. So you try that. You can right-click on it, and in the little pop-up that appears, you can just click on is, or if you want to read more about it, click on grammar, and then read about it, and then click on replace. All right, let's move on to the next one. So for each of these, you're putting the video on pause so that you can try it out. All right, let's talk about the next one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right-click on let's. And this time they don't seem to offer me the little extra thing about grammar, but they do tell me, oh, it should be like this with an apostrophe. By the way, if it's not really misspelled, then I'll have this thing about ignore it, or we'll see some other choices in a minute. So I'm going to click on let's with an apostrophe, and there it fixes that one. And then I'm going to right-click on about, and it offers me choices that are like that one. And we'll talk about, so where did it get these choices from? Well, I got it from something called the Spell Checker Dictionary, which is just being mentioned down here. So I'm going to click on the better spelling of about. By the way, early on, building computers, they thought they would be able to teach computers how to spell relatively easily. They would give it a bunch of rules, and they'd let it get some experience, and that way it would learn. And eventually they got to that. Any of you who watched Jeopardy, where they had the big blue computer playing against humans. So eventually they kind of worked that out. But imagine initially trying to teach a computer how to spell. I want to give it some rules. Here's one that you've probably heard along the way. If you have a word with an E and an I right next to each other, which one would come first? Okay, computer, I'm going to give you this rule. I before E. There we go. But some of you in your head right now, you're saying, yes, except after C. All right, so now I got to go in and give it the rule about, okay, I before E. Oh, there's an exception here, computer, except after C. And when I talked to my father about this years ago, he said, well, the way we learned that rule went like this: I before E, except after C, except when sounding like A, as in neighbor, N-E-I-G-H-B-O-R, or way, W-E-I-G-H. So now I'm in there saying, hey, computer, I before E, oh, there's an exception to the rule, except after C, oh, there's an exception to the rule, and they, eventually kind of gave up on that for a while. And what they've done in the Office suite is give it a spell checker dictionary. Now, this is not a dictionary with definitions. They do have one of those. It's called the Thesaurus, but the dictionary is just a list of about 100,000 correctly spelled words. So that's where it got the better spelling of about, was from that spell checker dictionary. All right, next thing that I'm seeing here is it's with an apostrophe. I'm right-clicking on that. It says this one should be done without an apostrophe. The only time you should use an apostrophe is if it's short for it is. And in this case, that's not that. Let's let this company go about it is business. No, so I need it's without the apostrophe. All right, put the video on pause and you try that. All right, now we come to the McCrowns and the McBuns. So I'm right-clicking on McCrowns. It's having a little trouble figuring out what this should be. Microns, macrons, crowns, McNouns. Man, I don't even know what that word is, but it's in the spell checker dictionary. So if this is a word that I use a lot because I work at McDonald's and I write documents about McCrowns, then I do have a choice to actually add it to the dictionary, and I'm going to do that right now. By the way, it would be a really good idea if you had it spelled correctly in the first place when you add it to the dictionary. Otherwise, you got to figure out, so how do I get it out of the dictionary and then fix it? Well, while I'm just mentioning it, let's talk, let's see. So I'm going to go up to the View tab, and I'm sliding down here to Options, and I'm going over here to the Proofing Tools. We were looking at this a moment ago with the check spelling and all that, and right here it says, hey, we've got some custom dictionaries. And so I'm going to click on Custom Dictionaries, and it shows me a couple of them. And one of them, if I zoom in on it, it's named my Roaming Custom Dictionary. And it says that's the default place where it would store these kind of words. So with that one selected, I have a choice over here at the at the right-hand side that says I would like to edit that word list. So I give that a click, and then here is my special word list. And if I misspell it here, I can delete it. Notice there's not a fix it here. So if I'm realizing, oh, I misspelled that one in the first place and I want to remove it from that spell checker dictionary, I can select it here and then delete it, and I'm going to do that. And OK a couple of times. In fact, OK thrice. There we go. So now it's misspelled again, and I don't have any better phrase for that. So we could do the same thing with McBuns. By the way, the red squiggles are not going to print. So if this is just a one-time thing and you don't want to add it to the dictionary, leave the red squiggles there. That's fine. All right, so try that out. Right-click on the word McCrowns and add it to the dictionary. And then to remove it from the dictionary, you go to File and Options, Proofing, Custom Dictionary, Top Default Dictionary, edit the word list, click on the word, and delete it. So that's your job for the next couple of minutes here. Put the video on pause and go do all of that stuff. All right. Now, I'd mentioned that there are some things that it won't necessarily find on the first pass through, but there's another way to get it to kind of start over again. I'm going to go up here to the Review tab. I'm going to click on that. And then I've got a choice in here about the spelling and grammar. And I'm going to click on that. And right now it starts wherever my cursor was and checks forward from there. And here are words that are in the spell checker dictionary that it found. And I'm going to say, no, I don't really want to do any of those. I'm just going to say ignore all for the moment. And then it finds this one that's wrong. And I'm going to say, yep, ignore that one as well. And now it says, all right, that spelling and grammar check is complete. Sometimes it will find things that it didn't find previously. So I'm just saying, after you fix the things that it found automatically, run that spelling and grammar checker again. And then one more thing that's really important, there are still things that it won't find. You still have to eyeball your document and go through it and see if there are things that it didn't find that you would like changed. So you still need to go through and check things by eyeball, but it's kind of nice to feel like somebody's watching your back. In this case, Word itself. Now, I had mentioned that there were a couple other things we were going to talk about, so let's look a little bit more about the proofing tools. For example, let's say I would like to find a different word for the word company. So I'm going to go just click in the word company to put my cursor there. I don't really need to select the whole thing, as it turns out, for this. And under my review tab, where I was doing spelling and grammar a moment ago, that pulled things in from the spell checker dictionary. But I said that dictionary doesn't really have definitions or synonyms. The thesaurus does that. So I'm going to click on the thesaurus. That opens up a little control panel over here, where it is now showing me synonyms for the word business. Corporation, firm, concern. And then as I scroll down some more, it says, oh, there's another definition for the word company, and it's companionship. And so sometimes they'll have the noun version of it, they'll have verb versions of it, they'll have multiple, sort of versions of a word and words that you could substitute for that. So let's say that I would like to change this to corporation. I am tempted to just click on corporation, because that's what I did when I was running my spell checker or my grammar checker. But watch what happens when I click on corporation. Didn't do anything over here. What it's doing instead now is looking up synonyms for the word corporation. Oh, and it says one of those is company. Yeah, okay, there's a big circle. So if I want to go back and look at company again, I can either click on company, or there is a little arrow here where I can go back to a previous one that I was doing. Click on the little left arrow, now I'm looking at company. So how do I get corporation in there in its place? The secret in this case, if I click the little pull down arrow, I see a couple of choices called insert or copy. Alternatively, if I right click on corporation, I will see those choices about insert or copy. Copy means take this word corporation and put it on the clipboard waiting to be pasted someplace. If I want it to replace the word company right here, then I would use insert instead of copy, and that's what I'm about to do. Insert. There we go, now we got the word corporation instead of company. Right, your turn to try that. So you're going to go click anywhere in the word company. You're going to go up and click on the thesaurus. That opened up this window. Find a word over here that you would like to replace it with. I would recommend don't use the word business, because that would say, let's let this business go about its business. I don't know, I guess that could be kind of cute, but, be careful about those kind of things too. Okay, so you're going to go do that. Put the video on pause and get it to replace company with corporation, please. Welcome back. I would like to introduce the new kid on the block here, Smart Lookup. It says learn more about text that you select by seeing definitions, images, and other results from various online sources. So this is a brand new one here. Let's say we don't just have a car, we have a Mercedes. I should be so lucky. And then I'd like to look up the word Mercedes using the Smart Lookup. One way to do that is to right-click in it. There's a choice about Smart Lookup. The other one is to just go right here. They're both going to do the same thing. They're going to open up a new panel over at the right side. Smart Lookup. So it's got two tabs up here. The one defined says, yeah, we don't really have another word for Mercedes. But Explore tells me about Mercedes-Benz. It's got a Wikipedia article about it. Got some pictures from Bing Images. And some more websites that I could click on to actually go to the Mercedes-Benz website and learn more about the different Mercedes that are available, the green ones and the other ones as well. So give that a try. Give yourself a Mercedes. I wish we could actually make that happen through this class, but make believe you have a Mercedes, and then click in it and do the Smart Lookup and see this new thing appear over here. Put the video on pause. Talk to you in a minute. All right, welcome back. So I'm going to hide both of these little task panes at the right side. I'm going to hide the insights. I'm going to hide the thesaurus. Now I want to talk about a thing that we saw happen here, where I mistyped the word business and it didn't flag it, it just fixed it. That's something called autocorrect. And we're going to see that there is a list of commonly misspelled words and their better spellings. And it can be used in a couple of different ways that we're going to see. So I'm going to click right at the end of that last sentence. I'm going to hit the Enter key. And I'd like you to watch it do a couple of these. I went to, and I want to type the word the, except I mistype it, T-E-H. You see me typing T-E-H. When I hit the space bar, it says, oh, you probably meant T-H-E. And if I'm just typing along and I misspell it like that, I won't even see it fix it. It just does it. So I went to the store, and I'm going to misspell it, A-D-N, and I bought a Mercedes. Must have been a heck of a store there. So that was a couple of examples of something called autocorrect. Now, maybe you have words that you realize from your experience that you commonly misspell, and you'd like to add them to that dictionary. There's also a couple other things we might use this for. So first of all, let's go see what this autocorrect list looks like. So I'm going to go up here to File, and I'll give you time to do this in a minute. You know how it goes. You watch me first, and then you try it. So I'm going up to File and Options, and I'm going back to that proofing section where we were talking about the custom dictionaries, the things that it automatically is looking for. And then in the upper right corner, here's the bad boy I'm looking for right now, autocorrect options. I click on that. Here comes a list. So up here at the top, we have things that it's looking for all the time, like 2 initial capitals. Here's an example of it. Or if I type a sentence and I haven't capitalized the first letter, it'll do that for me automatically. We've all had this happen where you've accidentally hit the caps lock key and it's typing everything reversal. It can try to look for those things and automatically fix it while you're doing it. Also, as I move down a little bit here, it's got a list. On the left side, it's the misspellings, and on the right side, it's what to change it to. For the moment, let me just scroll down in there. And then I'll zoom in a little bit. So, about the should be replaced with about space the. And again, these are auto-correcting features. You type it this way, it automatically types it this way. So you could go up right in here and type some word that you know you commonly misspell, and then type the better one in here. You might have to go look it up in the dictionary first to see what the better spelling is, but this way you could create things on this list of your own. You would type in the bad one, type in the good one, click on add, it would now be in this list. Now I kind of scrolled past a couple of things that were in there that I should go back and talk about for a moment. So if I want to make a copyright symbol, I can type parentheses around a lowercase c, and as soon as I hit the space bar, it'll replace it with a copyright symbol. We've got the old school smileys in here, so you could type one of the old school smileys and it'll fix it up with a new school smiley. But there are other things that I've seen people use this for. Let's say that I work for Dr. Norval Knockenlocker, and I'm supposed to sign his name at the end of every document that I send out to his customers. And so I'm always in there, all right, how do I spell Knockenlocker? So I'm going to set a thing up, so maybe I'll just type Dr. K, maybe even just DRK. By the way, these need to be letters that you would not normally just type in the course of typing a normal document, at least not these 3 letters and then a space. So I'm going to type in DRK as an abbreviation for Dr. Knockenlocker. And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to spell his name in there. Dr. Knockenlocker. All right, got one more step to do here. I'm going to click on Add. Now, let's see this in action. I'm going to OK my way out of here. You can see it on the list down here. So I'm clicking on OK, OK twice, and now I'm going to put in his name. DRK. I hit the space bar. Dr. Knockenlocker. Now, you could set up a thing so that when you typed a couple of letters, it could type your name. I can see that it's got a little problem with Knockenlocker here. What could I do about that so that it wouldn't flag his name, assuming I've spelled it right here? Remember how we could add it to the dictionary? I could right-click on it, and I could add it to the dictionary. Again, make sure you've spelled it right the first time, otherwise you gotta go remove it from the dictionary. All right, so I would like you to try that. Again, the way we got there was File, Options, Proofing, Autocorrect Options. So you type something on the left, you type the better thing on the right, add it to this list, and then go check it out. So I'm closing all of those little windows. So I tell you a little story about the autocorrect feature. So you don't have to do this with me. I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to choose Options. I'm going to go to the proofing. I'm going to go to the autocorrect options. So one of my fellow teachers is a guy named Alex. And he has a good friend who's also a teacher here named Jim. So Alex was sent to a company to teach one day, and he knew that Jim would be there the next day. So he set out to sabotage Jim. He set it up so that the next time somebody typed Jim, it would type Big Fat Hairy Idiot. And he knew Jim would know how to fix it, but he also knew Jim would be in a hurry in the morning, like typing stuff up on the screen. Hi, I'm Jim, and this is what we're going to teach here. And so it said it went off just like clockwork. Hi, I'm Big Fat Hairy Idiot. And everybody, there was this like big gasp in the room, and he had to look up to see why they were gasping. And he knew who had done it. He said, Alex. So they were both telling us the story later on. Now, I'm not suggesting you do that to any of your coworkers. Silly little note there. A little bit of a brain break. I don't need this document for anything more, so if you just finish the previous section here, feel free to close this document. So one of the ways to do that, I can go to File and Close. It asks me, do I want to save it? And I will say, no, thank you. So let's go open another file here to play with for our next subject. So we can go to File and Open, or you can use Control-O. Going through File and Open. I get to this window, I'm going to go Browse. And I'm going to go take advantage of the fact that I made a little shortcut over here. So I'm going to go over here and click on my Word sample files. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm looking for one named Finding Text. Finding Text for Mod 2. So I'm going to double click on that one. Here it comes, Finding Text. And you'll notice up here at the top it says this is open in protected view. Unless you need to edit it. If you're just going to read it, then just read it. If you need to edit it, then you'll have to click on Enable Editing. You may have seen this happen earlier in your experience here. So I'm going to click on that, and here I am now in the document named Finding Text. So pause the video, go open that document, Finding Text, please. So I would like to use the Find command up here. I'm going to go click on that. By the way, as I'm hovering over it, might be tough to read, but it says a keyboard shortcut is Control-F. So either Control-F or click on the word Find opens up the left side navigation pane. Last time I was here was in another module where I was looking for the words Chapter 3 in a document. Notice in this document it doesn't find any Chapter 3. But maybe I would like to look up the word Gallery, find where the word Gallery appears. So I'm going to type that in right here, G-A-L-L. As I'm typing, it starts looking. The more I type, the more specific it gets about what it's looking for. And it automatically highlights all the occurrences, and if there's a bunch of them, then it shows me little shortcuts to them over here. So I'm scrolling up and down, hovering over this one. It says that one's on page 1. Scrolling way the heck down here, hovering over that one. It says that one's on page 4. Apparently the word gallery is in here just a whole bunch of times. Now, maybe I want to replace that word just once with some other word. Well, we've seen we could do that through the thesaurus, for example. Or maybe I want to replace all occurrences of that word with something else. A classic use for this would be, we've got a bunch of documents for a company where the company name is mentioned in the document, and then the company gets sold, and now the company has a new name, and I need to go back and rework a bunch of my documents to go find the old name and replace it all with the new name. So we do have a couple of different ways to replace things. I'm going to go up here and click on the little pull-down arrow next to the word gallery. And I've got some choices in here about, for example, do I want to find graphics in my documents? Do I want to find footnotes in my documents? Well, not what I want to do right now. What I want to do is replace the word gallery with something else. So I'm going to click on Replace. And now it opens up the Find and Replace window. By the way, I could have done that by clicking on Replace up here to start with. So now it says Gallery, and then down here I'm going to tell it what word to replace it with. And then I can either replace it once and then find the next one and decide about replacing that, or I can replace all of them. Also, as I look down here under the more, I've got some other choices down here about, do I worry about uppercase, lowercase? Do I want it to only find places where a gallery is the whole word, or do I want it to find other words that are like it, like galleries? That would be all word forms. If I don't look for whole words only, then it will find words inside each other. This makes me think of a old joke that Stephen Colbert was telling on his show one night. He was reading an article that said a famous political figure had been buttinated. And he said this was an example of find and replace gone wild. The person, it said, had been buttinated. And so I'm thinking, so what would that be about a spell checker? Maybe he was assassinated. And they'd run a spell checker looking for one of those words and putting in the other one, and suddenly he was buttinated. And Stephen's answer to that was that probably happened with a Butt-Alt rifle. Anyway, moving on. So I can get real specific about how I want it to find certain words, and do I care about the uppercase, lowercase, and that kind of stuff. And maybe I want to replace the word gallery with showplace. Now, that's not really appropriate for the word gallery here, because they're talking about these kind of galleries up there, the Styles galleries and so forth. That's the official name of those. But I'm going to say, in my case, yeah, I want to replace the word gallery with the word showplace. So I'm going to click on replace. And somewhere in the background here, it replaced the word gallery with showplace, and now it has found the next one. Then I'm going to say, okay, replace that one. And now that one says showplace, and now it's finding the next one. And if I just don't like that word at all, or it's that one case where the new company has bought out the old company and I need to replace them all, then I've got a button for that, replace all. And it said it found 71 replacements. The word gallery is obviously mentioned a lot in this document. I'm going to choose OK. And then I would like you to try that thing you have just seen me do. I'm going to close this window. So again, the way I started that was I went to the find command. That opened up the navigation place over here. Navigation pane. I said, look for the word gallery. It's having some trouble finding the word gallery. I can see galleries down here, so I might need to go in there and say, hey, find all versions of the word, but right now all of the words gallery have been replaced with that other word. But that's how we got started at it. Once it found places with the word gallery, we clicked on this little pull-down arrow, said I want to replace. We told it to replace gallery with showplace. You can click on replace. It'll do them one at a time. You might need to grab the title bar to move it out of the way, and then maybe try replace all, and it'll tell you how many it found. So your turn to use the find and replace feature of Microsoft Word, please. As we've been working along, we've got several documents open right now, if you've been playing along with me. Why don't we take a moment and close all the documents we have open. As we close them, it'll ask us if we want to save them. That'll be up to you, but we probably have saved them recently, so it probably won't ask. So I'm going to go up here and click on my close button up in the upper corner. This one says, do I want to save the changes to finding text? I'm going to say, yeah, go ahead and save that with the replacements. All right, so module 2 large document. I'm going to close that one the same way. You can also go to File and choose Close. By the way, keyboard shortcut for close a document, I believe, is still Control-W. So again, File and closing this one. Mine says, do I want to save it? Section breaks for mod 2. Sure, I'll save that. And it finishes closing it. Now, eventually along the way, probably as you get to closing the very last document, you're probably going to see this. You have modified styles or building blocks, such as cover pages or headers. In our case, it's a footer. And if I want that footer to truly be available from now on in other documents, I need to say, yeah, save that modified building block that I made for a footer. So I'm going to click on that. You are probably going to see that along the way here if you were playing along with me when we made that footer. All right, let us go restart Microsoft Word then. It should offer me those templates right away. And I'd like to try one of these. I'd like to try the personal letterhead. Now, yours might not be just right up here in the top row. You may have to scroll down and look for it a little bit. I wish the list was alphabetized, but I'm afraid I can't say that. So you're going to scroll down, try to find one called Personal Letterhead. It should kind of look like this. And when you find it, go ahead and click on it. It'll show you a little preview of it, and then you're going to click Create. And it may take it a moment, but it should pop it up fairly quickly. So it's taken who I'm signed in as, thrown that up here, got little placeholders for street addresses and so forth. Now right now, as I try to click on the placeholders for the street address and so forth, it seems to be a little tough here. I'm trying to click on it, I'm getting nothing. If you will double click on it, you'll discover, oh, that's actually up in the header, and that's why you couldn't get to it at first. But now you can. You can modify whatever you want there. So put the video on pause and do what you saw me do. Open up that template called the personal letterhead. It'll show you a preview. You'll click Create. You should be where I am, and then you can double click up here for the street address, and you'll be in that placeholder. So go catch up with me, everybody. So you could go up here and modify the street address, your telephone number, your email, those sort of things, and that way that would be in this document the next time you open it. One of the things that's cool about a template file, I'm sure that we've all done this. I need to make it a document this year that's very much like a document that I created last year. So I'm really tempted to open up last year's document and type in the new information, the new location of the party that we're inviting them to, the new price of whatever thing I'm trying to sell them. And then if I make this mistake, if I go up and click on the Save button, what have I just done to last year's document? I've destroyed it. I've replaced it. Microsoft would say, you have updated last year's document. I have a little different name for that. I would say, you have stomped and folded and mutilated last year's document and replaced it with this year's document. One of the cool things about a template is you can modify it, add new things to it, and then when you click the Save button, it will not destroy the template. It will create a brand new document every single time. And then we'll come back and talk about, well, what if there are certain things that I want in there every single time? Maybe I'll make a template for myself. So we're going to look at those two levels of using templates. All right, so if you want to take a minute and fill in your street address and telephone and that kind of thing, well, I take a minute and do that now. I'm not going to do that right now, but feel free to do that if you like. Put the video on pause and then come on back. So let's imagine that I have done that, and now I want to use this template for a particular thing. So I'm going to double click down in the regular text, gets me out of the header. It says I could click to select a date. Select a date. I click on it, I get a little pull down arrow here with something called a date picker. So it has today's date in there. I could click on today and put that in there. Maybe I want to send the letter next week, so I could put, next week's date in there. So far, I just click on today, I click away, there it is. Has today's date in there. It says, Dear Recipient. All right, so I'm writing this letter to a particular person. And I'm going to zoom in on it a bit. So, Dear Dizzy Gillespie. And then it's got a bunch of text down here that I probably don't want in there, but it's just little placeholders for how the thing would look. And so now I'm going to fill in the information that I need Mr. Gillespie to know. So I am dragging across the things that I'm going to change. And maybe this is going to be sort of a standard form rejection letter. So we have reviewed your application to our trade show. Arcade show. I'm going to right-click on that and use my spell checker dictionary. Trade show. We find that the products you have offered are not appropriate for our trade show. Please reapply with different products if you wish. Now notice I see the red squiggle there. If I stop my typing and go fix it every time I see a red squiggle, it really slows me down. So a good habit to get into is just keep typing, ignore the little red squiggles, go back and fix them at the end. So please reapply with different products if you wish. And down here we got warm regards and my name in it. All right, now I'm going to go back and right-click on any mistakes, grammar and spelling mistakes and so forth, and fix them up. And now this document is ready to go. So I can actually just click Save. I don't have to worry about Save As because I'm starting with a template. So I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to choose Save. I'm going to browse for a place to put this. I don't want to put it on my corporate OneDrive just yet. So I'm going to click on Browse. And you'll notice right now it's ready to make a Word document. And it's not going to write over top of the old one, my template. So I'm going to save this Word document. Maybe I'll put it in my finished documents folder that I created for my lessons. So I'm going to drop it right in there. And I'm going to call it Gillespie Rejection Letter. So I'd like you to try that. You've filled in your name, your street address, and so forth, put in today's date, write a little letter to somebody, maybe make it a rejection letter, and then click the Save button, put it in our Finished Documents folder, and name it something appropriate for what text you filled in there. When I left off at the end of the previous lesson, we had just used a template to create a document, and one of the big points of why we would use a template is you can modify the document and choose the Save button, and you're not destroying the original. The original is still, shall we say, virginal. So I'm going to close this one document right now, and then I'm going to start Word again. So the next time I want to use that particular template, it should be a little bit higher on your list now. You can go click on Personal Letterhead Template. I'm going to create it. A little faster way, you can double click on it. So it's creating it right now. And you can see it's back to the original. Select a start date, dear such and such, and blah, blah, blah. So all that stuff that I typed in there did not affect the original template. But what if I send out a lot of rejection letters just like that one? We don't like what you offered us, but feel free to reapply with other products. And maybe that's just going to be kind of a generic letter that I send out to a lot of people, and I don't want to have to retype all that stuff all the time. So what I'm going to do is make a template for myself that has that stuff that's not going to change every time, my street address, city, state, zip. I still want to have the part about select a date. I still want to have the part about select a recipient, but I will rebuild that stuff that I had just said about, you don't qualify with what you're offered us so far, but please reapply with other products. So I'm going to change this up, and I'm actually going to save it as a template this time. So put the video on pause. I would like you to reopen that template. It should be just as it was when you first found it. So this time go in there, enter your street address, city, state, zip, the stuff that's not going to change every time, and then come on back. You'll discover I have done a similar thing by the time you get back. All right, welcome back. I've made up a street address here, 123 Elm Street. I'm thinking of Freddy Krueger, I guess. Really dating myself there. So every time I use this, I want to be able to select the date. I want to be able to fill in a recipient name. Caught a little grammar thing here. I wanted it to say we have reviewed your application. So I filled in basically the same stuff that I sent to Mr. Gillespie earlier. I guess I should be nice and put a period at the end of that sentence. So why don't you take a moment and basically duplicate what you see here. I'm going to leave this on screen. You're going to pause the video. You're going to go change these things, please, and then come on back. We're almost done. So these are words that will not change every time we send this out. Maybe I want to have this as a template called rejection letter. That means we need to save it specifically as a template and not as a document. So this will be a save as command. You're going to watch and then you'll do it. So I'm clicking on File. I'm going to Save As, or I can use my keyboard shortcut F12. I'm going to browse for where to put this thing. Now, just offhand, it's ready to put it in the My Documents folder, and it's ready to make a Word document, and whatever were the first words in the document, it wants that to be the file name. All right, so I'm going to change that. I'm going to name it Rejection Letter Template. I don't have to put the word template on there. Maybe I'll just call it Rejection Letter. I'll know that it's going to be a template. And then right down here, where it says Save it as a Word document, I'm going to click, and I'm going to tell it specifically, save it as a Word template. Save as a Word template. Now suddenly a special thing has gone on in the upper part of my save window. Notice it's not ready to put it in the My Documents folder anymore. It's ready to put it in a folder named Custom Office Templates. That's a default choice for where your personal templates go. And I'm going to let it go there, and I'm going to let it be called Rejection Letter, and I'm going to save it. So now you can see the new name up here, Rejection Letter. And again, you might not be able to see the 4-letter extension on the end of your file names up here, but instead of ending in DOCX, this one ends in DOTX, as in template. All right, so your turn. You've changed words down in here to be the ones that you're always sending out with this rejection letter. And then again, we went to File and Save As. At first we said Browse. It was ready to put it in the Documents folder. But as soon as we said I want to save it as a template instead, then it's putting it in this magic Custom Office Templates folder, and we've named it Rejection Letter. So catch up with me there, finish that off, put the video on pause, and go that far, please. All right, so now we're going to see how to actually use this template. So I'm going to close this document. Happens to be the last one that I have open, so now I have to go restart Word. So I've still got the personal letterhead over here, but that's the generic one. I'm looking for my rejection letter. The list is not alphabetized, but you could spend a long time trying to look for that in this list. You will not find it, because this is the featured list. If I want to look at a list of things that I have created, I have to go to my personal templates. So I'm going to click on Personal Templates. Hey, there's my rejection letter. I'm going to call it up by clicking on it. There it is. So it's got the rejection stuff in it. I have to fill in the date, I have to fill in the recipient, and then I'll send it out. So do that much. You can either close Word or go to File and New. I would recommend that you close the document that's specific for Mr. Gillespie, and then go to File and New, or if that was the last document it had opened when you closed it, it closed Word, so restart Word. And then when you see those templates, let me just remind you of that last step there. When you're looking at the templates, you have to go to the personal templates and then find yours and give it a click, and it will launch that new template with all of the rejection stuff in there. So pause the video, catch up with me. So now I need to send this out to a different person. So I saved it as a template. Now I've opened it from my personal templates. It's got the information that I filled in that doesn't change from document to document, like the rejection stuff. All I have to do is fill in the date and the recipient. So here's my date. Here's my recipient. I'm going to go to Mr. Gillespie's friend, Charlie Parker. Gets the same rejection letter, so I'm ready to save that. File, save. Decide where to put it. Maybe in my case, I'll put it in my finished documents folder over here. And this will be the Charlie Parker rejection letter. Right? I'm not saving it as a template. I'm using the template I created to create a new document from the template I created, from my personal template. All right, I'm finished saving that thing. And there we go. Let's leave this document on screen for our next lesson. So I'm ending this lesson and then go on to the next one. We're going to talk about how could I then take this document and maybe email it to Mr. Parker. So that's what we'll be talking about next. In the previous session, we created this document from a template that we had created. And then what I want to do next is send a copy of this document to Mr. Parker at his email address by involving Outlook. So here in Word, I'm going to click on File. I'm going to choose to share this document. Now notice the default is to save it to the cloud and then allow other people to edit it. And that's really the wave of the future, that kind of collaboration. But in this case, this is just a one-off. This is just an email going out to tell him he's been rejected from the trade show. So I'm clicking on Email. I can send this document as an attachment. I can convert it to a PDF and send it as an attachment. Got several other choices down here. But I just want to send this document as an attachment to an email using Outlook. So I click on Send Attachment. Now it's getting me to sign in to my Outlook program here. I'm clicking on OK to sign in. Outlook should be appearing momentarily. Here it is. Now I have to address it to Mr. Parker. C. Parker at Columbia Records. I don't know if any of you are recognizing these names. Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker. They are legends of the jazz bebop era. I'm a big fan of jazz. In fact, oddly enough, my college degree is in jazz music studies. I've just always studied computers along the way as well. My minor is in computer studies, but trombone players usually don't have Blue Cross and things like that, so it's been good to have some other talents. But that's how I'm familiar with the names Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker and those kind of things. So I gotta tell you, I'm making up an email address because Charlie Parker isn't even alive anymore. So I'm going to send this out to him and, drop a little note to him saying, please reapply if desired. Then we've also got the rejection letter going out here. So when I click on send, it ought to send that email to him. Here I've got, a couple little things that are hampering it. The fact that this email address doesn't actually exist. But in your business, in real life, when you clicked on send, it would actually send that thing out. So let's assume that would happen. If you would like to try that, send out something to Charlie Parker, you'll probably run into the same kind of things that I'm running into, that he doesn't exist. If you would like to try to send it to, I don't know, maybe yourself, then you should have better luck at that. So if you want to try that, feel free to just send it to yourself here, just so you can see it actually happen. So that's the end of our section about taking a document that you've created, attaching it to an email, and sending it out. So I'm going to close these windows. Once you have sent that out, you can go ahead and close Outlook if it happens to open for you, and you'll wind up back in your document. Thanks, everybody. So that's the idea of sending out by email. In our previous session, we were talking about sending this document out by email. Let's do as we have done with several of our other sessions. Let's close all the Word documents that we have open, and we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about sending something by snail mail, post office mail. So I'm going to close this document, and then I'm going to go open one here. I'm going to switch from my finished Word documents to my Word sample files documents, and I would like to reopen one that we were using earlier in this session. Its name was Section Breaks, and it's got several pages to it. That's why I'd like to reopen that one. So I'm scrolling down through the alphabetized list here and finding section breaks that we've used in Module 2. So here's my cover page, and then here's my other pages where we'd set up the headings at the top of the pages and so forth. I'm looking down here in the bottom left corner. It says this is a 16-page document. So I'm going to print this thing out. And then eventually we're going to talk about putting it in a snail mail, printing out envelopes and that kind of thing. So first of all, let's talk about printing the document itself, getting it on paper, and then we'll decide what to do with the paper in the next session. So to print this thing, I'm going to go up to the File menu, and as you can imagine, I'm going to click on Print. And so I really like the fact that they give me a print preview right away. Any of you who have been around Word for a long time, there was an older version of Word where you had to make a separate choice about seeing a print preview. Here, as soon as you go to print, you see the preview right away. So there's a couple of things going on in the lower left section over here. What is it I want to print? Do I want to print all the pages? Well, that's what it is by default. But let's imagine that maybe in the middle of this thing, there's a page that has a coupon for some freebie, and that offer isn't available anymore, and I want to skip that page. So one of the ways that I could choose to not print all the pages is in this box right below, where I can list consecutive pages by putting in a number and a hyphen and then the number after it. And then anything that I want to leave out, I can leave a comma and then choose some other pages. And right now that seems kind of vague, but let me tell you what I'm talking about here. So I could say, let's see, I'm looking at this thing, it says it's 16 pages. I can actually kind of move from page to page to see what things are going to look like. So if for some reason I didn't want to print page 7, let's just imagine that that's the case, I could say for the pages I want to print, I'm going to print pages 1 through 6, comma, 8 through 16. Or I could say 1 through 6, comma, 8 through 12, comma, 14 through 16, something like that. So let me just zoom in on that. I've said give me pages 1 through 6, skip page 7, give me pages 8 through 16. Right below that, I get to choose if I have a printer that'll print on both sides of the paper. I should have a choice about that. Now, I can also do that up here under the printer properties, and this is probably actually a better place to do that. So the properties that are available when you click on printer properties, of course, will depend on which printer you've got, the brand, the model, and so forth. I happen to be set up on a printer here that can print both sides of the paper. So I could say, well, what quality do I want to use for my printouts? I'm going to choose draft. And then under layout here, I get to choose in this printer that will print on both sides of the paper. Do I want to just print on one side of the paper? Or if I'm going to print on both sides of the paper, do I want to flip it on the short side, which would be on the bottom? Or do I want to flip it on the long side, which is, used much more often here? So again, the choices that you have in the printer properties are totally dependent on the model and make of the printer that you have. And then down below that, we were talking about this. Do I want to print all the pages? Do I want to print certain pages? And then this word collated. You've probably run into this word before. Let's say I'm going to print like 8 copies of this thing, and I need to distribute it to the people in my department. So I'm going to print several copies of this multiple page document. The default setting is that document will be automatically collated. That is, as it says down here, it'll print page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, whatever pages you said. And then when it gets to the end of that, then it'll print page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. I can't think of any reason why I would ever want to turn that off so that it wound up printing page 1, page 1, page 1, page 1, page 1, 8 times. Then give me page 2, page 2, page 2, and then I've got to be a human collator? I don't think so. I can't think of a time when I have ever used the uncollated choice. Notice here I can choose the orientation of my page, either portrait or landscape. That actually should have been long ago done. As I was putting together the document itself, I should have made the choice about portrait versus landscape orientation way back when. It would also have been a good idea to choose the paper size early on. We saw how to do those things if you took earlier sessions here. Here I can set up the mirrored margins. Again, those are all things that should have been done long ago. So usually when I get here to the printing stage, about the only thing I choose is what pages do I want to print, what printer do I want to use, any properties of that printer I want to take advantage of, and then how many copies am I going to print. That's usually pretty much everything that I choose about when I decide to print this thing. And then, of course, the last step would be to click on print, and away it would go. It would print out my document. So there's not very many choices they have to go through when you're printing the thing out, but do notice you have choices about which pages and some things like that we've just talked about. So now that we've discussed that, why don't we close this document? Now you can choose to print yours if you want. It's not required, and I'm not going to print mine right now. So I'm just going to step back out of here, and I'm going to close this document. In our previous lesson, we talked about printing out a document, and now maybe I need to take that document and send it by snail mail. And that means I'm going to need an envelope for it, but rather than hand addressing an envelope, why don't I actually get Word to print the envelope for me? So that's where we're headed next. I'm going to start up Microsoft Word. I would like you to do the same thing. Here we go. All right, right now, it's ready to do a blank document, and that's an okay way to start. So I'm going to click on blank document. But now I'm going to switch gears, and I actually want to print out an envelope. Now, as I look at the different command tabs that are available up here at the top, I'm wondering where I might find stuff about an envelope. What seems like the most likely place? Oh, I see something about mail here, mailings. That's actually the place I need to go. So that's where I'm clicking on right now, mailings. And then over here at the side, I see some choices about printing out envelopes or labels. Now, in a later lesson, we're going to start talking about printing out labels for a whole bunch of people at once, or printing out individually addressed envelopes for a whole bunch of people at once. In order to do that, we would need to do something called mail merge. Over here where it says envelopes and labels, these are about one at a time, or maybe a page of the same label over and over again. Why would I ever print a whole page of the same label? Well, maybe it's for somebody that I do a lot of business with, or maybe it's my return address label. So we'll talk about envelopes first, then we'll talk about labels second. And again, this is not individual labels for a whole bunch of people. It's the same label over and over again when we get there. But envelopes first, please. So here I go. I'm clicking on envelopes. It's going to open up a separate little window here. So once this appears, you'll see the dialog window has information about envelopes or labels. So we're going to start with envelopes. Here's a little preview of my envelope. I could have a return address section here, the sending out address here. So that would be called the delivery address. That's why there's a box for that. And this would be called the return address, and there's a box for that. So let's fill some of that stuff in. Maybe the delivery address. So I need to send this to Mr. J.J. Johnson, who is a jazz trombone player, or at least was. And J.J. Johnson, maybe he lives at 10 Main Street in Detroit, Michigan, 48099. And then the return address. So the delivery address is going to appear there on the envelope. Here's my return address. It will appear there. And so I am Dan McAllister from 123 Elm Street in Bakersfield, California, 94333. Now there are some other options down here. If I click on options, then I have some choices about the size of the envelope itself. Do I want to change the font for the delivery address? Do I want to change the font for the return address? If I want to, then I go and choose that, and I make all those kind of choices. And then once I'm ready, I'm going to click on OK. And then I'm going to put that envelope in my printer. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever had to do that, try to get an envelope in your printer and put it in there the right way. Very often on the tray in the printer, they'll have a little picture of an envelope telling you which way you should put it in. Do you want to put it in there with the flap up or the flap down, or what way does it need to be oriented? And if for some reason your printer doesn't have that, what I've done in the past is grabbed a sheet of paper and ripped it into thirds so that I had a piece of paper that was about the size of an envelope, and I drew an X on one side of it, and I sent that piece of paper through to figure out which side of the envelope it prints on. But you're usually not going to have to worry about that. Usually on the printer itself, it's got some little thing that indicates which way you're going to put the envelope in there. And then when you're ready to send it on, then all you have to do then is click on print. And so I'm not going to send mine. You can practice with yours if you like. So you filled in the sending address, you filled in the return address, and then click print and make sure your envelope is in there. So that's how to print envelopes fairly easily, huh? And then when you're finished, feel free to close this dialog window. And then we'll switch gears when we come back. The next session is going to be about printing labels. And in this case, it won't be labels with different people's names on it. It's going to be a bunch of labels with the same information on it. So for the moment, we are done with the printing of envelopes. In our last session, we were talking about printing an envelope. In this session, I'd promised that we were going to talk about printing labels. And again, let me just mention this. This is not a list of labels with several different people's names on each label. This is going to be one page of the same label over and over again. Maybe I do business with one company and I send them a lot of snail mail, so I just want their delivery label all printed out. Or maybe I'm going to print a page of return address labels that I can just slip on envelopes. Instead of printing the envelopes themselves, I'll get an envelope out and I'll put a label on it. Many people find that easier to print the labels and stick them on than printing the actual envelopes themselves. So this time, instead of envelopes, again, if you look, I'm under the Mailings tab here. This time, instead of envelopes, I'm going to go to Labels. And this dialog window should look familiar. It's envelopes on one side and labels on the other. All right, so this time I have only one spot here for the address, whether that's my return address or the sending address. Doesn't really matter, it's just going to be one address here. And then, do I want to print a full page of the same label, or do I want to print just one label? Now, many times the labels come several labels to a sheet. In fact, most often they do that. Very often, well, it depends on the size of the label as to how many labels will actually be on the piece of paper here. So first of all, let's fill in the information about the address, and then we'll start talking about, all right, then what labels do I want to use? So we're going to start out with full page of same label, and we're going to make maybe a return address label here. So maybe fill in your company information or your personal information that you would put on a return address label. Now maybe I would put it all on one line like that, or maybe I'm going to separate it into multiple lines, like I'm going to have the street, and then I'm going to have the city and the state, and maybe have the zip code right there on the same line. Next, you'll need to set up the options for the label. What size is it? How many labels go up and down on the piece of paper that they come glued to? How many sideways? How many up and down? What's the size of the label? And so forth. So to do that, we're going to click here on the Options button. So up here at the top, boy, they've got an old school thing here. Continuous feed printers. Those are the ones that had the fanfold paper with the little holes on the sides of the paper. Man, it's been a long time since I saw one of those. And then the other choice, the default choice, is page printers, where you're going to slip in a page with envelopes glued to it. So I'm going to go with that. And then we have label vendors down here. Now, early on, Microsoft really only supported a few of them, and maybe you guys know which one is the one that's been around kind of forever. I'll call it the McDonald's of labels. I'm going to click on the pull-down list here, and so I want to choose what brand I'm going to use. And if I scroll down just a little bit, I'm going to see this company right here, Avery. So Avery has been around forever. They are, again, I called them the McDonald's of labels here. And recently I was in an Office Max and I was walking through their labels section, and Office Max has their own brand of labels. And I found it kind of funny that on the front of the Office Max labels, it said, emulates Avery A5, A4, something like that. And I had to laugh at that. It's like if I'm selling beer and I say, my beer tastes just like Budweiser, buy my beer. So I got a little kick out of that, but I'm going to go with a Avery size, and US letter is just the size of the paper that it comes on. So I'm going to go with Avery US letter, and then once I choose that, then down here at the bottom, I've got all kinds of different Avery product numbers here. And probably the two most popular labels from Avery are numbers 2160 and 5160. So I'm going to scroll down through here. I'm going to find 2160. Scrolling a bunch here, getting down to the twos, and scrolling up to get like the 4-digit twos, and I'm looking for 2160. There it is, mini sheet labels, half sheet. So when I click on that, it says, all right, little mini labels, they're an inch high, they're about 2 2/3 inches wide. They come on a piece of paper that's 4 1/4 by 5 inches. Well, okay, that's great if my printer will handle those easily. Let me scroll down and look for 5160. Now, in fact, if right here I type a 5, it will jump past all the 1s and the 2s down to the 5s, which is kind of handy. And now I'm going to go look for 5160. Easy peel address labels. So these actually come on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. They're the same size as the other ones, 1 inch by 2 2/3. They don't come on a half a sheet of paper, they come on a full sheet. So 5160, 2160, the setup is the same for each of them, it's just what size piece of paper they come on. So I'm going with the 5160. What I hope I will never have to do is set up a brand new label where I'm going to define how wide the thing is and how tall it is and how many across the page and all that kind of stuff. Man, I hope I never, ever, ever have to do that. So I'm going to go with one of the pre-sizes here for my Avery labels. I'm going to click on OK. And so I'm pretty much ready to go here. Now, if I'd like to see what that page is going to look like, I can slide down here to this button and say, hey, give me a new document to show me what these labels will actually look like. And I'm going to click on that right now. And here's what the labels will look like. And then the last thing I need to do is put my page of labels on the printer. And again, I might need to test it out to figure out whether it's going to print on the front side or the back side. So what I have done sometimes in the past is just put in a regular piece of paper without any labels on it, make an X on one side of that piece of paper, send it through and figure out, well, did it print on the X side or the other side? And that'll help me decide which way I need to put the labels in before like wasting a whole page full of labels somehow. All right, so it's your turn to kind of finish that off. You were probably doing it with me, but if not, let me remind you how we got started. That was mailings and labels, and we filled in the address of it, We chose which label we wanted to use by going to the options, choosing, I went with the Avery US letter size paper, specifically number 5160. Remember, while you're going through this list, if you just click on something and type a 5, it will get you down past the 1s and 2s and 3s to the 5s, and then you have to only scroll a little bit to get the Easy Peel address labels 5160. So we filled in that information. We said, okay, that's the one I want. And then you could just send it to the printer, but I prefer to put it on a new document so I can see what it's going to look like and then send that document to the printer. So it's your turn to do all of that. So set up your labels. Maybe you don't happen to have a bunch of labels right there in the house, but if you want to slip a piece of paper in your printer and see what the labels will look like when you print them out, have at it. And that actually concludes our Module 2. So I hope you've had a good time. I hope you've seen useful things. Hope you'll come back for Module 3 and check out some more of Word 2016. For the moment, this is Dan McAllister signing off. Have a great rest of your day if you're done. Otherwise, I'll see you for Module 3.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget we also offer live classes in Office applications, professional development, and private training. Visit learnit.com for more details. Please remember to like and subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for choosing Learnit.